Hey everyone, how's it going? What's poppin'? What's going on? This video is a follow-up to a comment that I made on Delightful Kiss Boy's video that's titled, Who Would Really Win in a Fight? 1 Gorilla or 100 Men in D&D? For those who don't know, Delightful Kiss Boy is a creator here on YouTube. He makes very cool content, mostly like gambling or statistics related, as well as programming and gaming, stuff like that, nerd shit. He's a total dweeb. And I really like his stuff, so I thought it would be fun to follow up with one of the things he made, and plagiarism is, flattery. I think that's how that goes. So here we go. What's this all about, though? What's going on here? So, people have been posting online recently a hypothetical scenario. Picture, if you will, theater of your mind, 100 humans versus 1 gorilla. Who would win? Line them up and just start going at it. Just fists are flying. Who's going to come out on top at the end of the day? Another content creator that I like, Deck of DM Things, made a video where he analyzed the scenario using the rules for D&D 5th edition. I think 5th edition. I don't know if it was D&D 1. I didn't really check that deep into it. But this was a very fun video. I really liked it. His content is very good overall. I really enjoy his stuff a lot. And in this specific video, he came to the conclusion that 1 ape, 1 gorilla, which he was declaring as a giant ape, would absolutely massacre 100 human commoners. It's not even close, not even remotely a challenge. Every single one of them just gets turned into red paste. It's just disgusting afterwards. Then, Delightful Kiss Boy, alter ego Amicable Smooch Lad, made his own video response to this, where he came to some pretty different conclusions here. He made wildly different assumptions than what Deck of DM Things did in his video. Instead of being a great ape, it was like a regular ape. And I believe also he was claiming that the commoners deserved some sort of buff in this fight, while still keeping it to the original 100 humans just unarmed versus 1 gorilla without any particular strategy involved. And he resulted in total opposite, where like 100 human commoners it's a joke versus 1 gorilla. They would absolutely kick the shit out of it. Just circle it and just beat it until it is dead, stops moving real quick. I think the number was like 13 or 14 human commoners are what it would really take to put them down. And can't tell, I really like Delightful Kiss Boy's content. It's really fun stuff. So now I am making this video response to DKB's video response of Dottom T's video response. And my twist will be analyzing this scenario through the lens of the World of Darkness system instead of looking at it at D&D. I'm a different brand of nerd, if you will. I'm also, in this point, serving as like a late-stage human centipede on the discussion of this subject, because I've been meaning to make this video for a while, but a lot of things have been getting in the way. Also, I'm lazy. Now, World of Darkness brought that up. What does that mean? WoD. What is that? What's WoD? It is a tabletop role-playing game system, so just another TTRPG, really. It got made back in the 90s by White Wolf Publishing originally. I think it's changed hands a few times now. And it has several games made in this system, and they are still running to this day. They still got stuff coming out. It's doing great. The most common one, if anyone has heard of World of Darkness, would most likely be Vampire the Masquerade. That is a game set in the World of Darkness, which is both the setting and the system here. WoD games are described with a term that I think it was White Wolf that popularized this, of Gothic punk. Gothic punk here really means that it's a world that is dark, grungy, people are dealing with it, struggling with systems of oppression, and they're fighting back with it with all that they got. That's really what it means to be playing in a World of Darkness game here. And its rule set wise is going to be TTRPG, very similar to what you would find in like D&D, Pathfinder, Powered by the Apocalypse. There's so many Powered by the Apocalypse games. Call of Cthulhu, 13th Age, etc. You ultimately, you get friends together, you get your character sheets, you fill them out, you come up with your own little character, their fun backstories, you play them, you role play them in the world, you roll some dice, and you always have a lot of fun. It's really great. To differentiate it from these other systems, though, World of Darkness has 2 main shticks to it. Number 1, all of the dice that get rolled for every World of Darkness game will be exclusively D10s. Some systems, like Powered by the Apocalypse, only make use of D6s. Something though like D&D or Pathfinder, you're going to need like a whole set of dice there. You get like a D20 as kind of your baseline, but then you also will be rolling like D4s, D6s, D8s, D10s, D12s, etc. World of Darkness, you only got D10s. In fact, they've actually got special D10s just for some World of Darkness games here. Look at those skulls. They're sick as hell. That little onk symbol, too, is really cool. I love them. We're nerdy enough to have... Our table has actually just bought blank D10s and taken markers to them and drawn on them to create our own little custom shapes and symbols on them. So World of Darkness D10s are a pretty unique thing because, as far as I'm aware, I don't think any other TTRPG system exclusively uses them. Like, Call of Cthulhu uses them, but they also use like the percentile dice because there's the D10s and then the 10s with the double-digit numbers on them for like tens place, whatever. Anyway, the other shtick of World of Darkness is that the setting for the game, also described as the World of Darkness, like the overbranching kind of umbrella term World of Darkness for all of the games that take place in it, is a mirror of our real world, with an exception that there are spooky beings running around, supernatural shit all over there, and, you know, a la Vampire the Masquerade. You'd be surprised to learn there are vampires in that game. It's spooky. If there's anything to take away from this, it's that WoD is spooky. Vampire Masquerade, spooky. Other games in World of Darkness are all spooky games. But for this video, specifically what I want to go over is going to be an introduction to the World of Darkness setting, rules, and mechanics, because I could blab forever about World of Darkness. I've gotten into it in recent years, and I absolutely adore it, and I think it is a wonderful system. I also want to talk about how characters are made and what they can do. Specifically, in the case that we wanted to, say, make some human mortal characters and put them up against a wild gorilla for some reason. I think people might be talking about that online. And it wouldn't really be full plagiarism of DKB if I wasn't making code simulations of these regular mortals versus a gorilla so that we could run hundreds of thousands of trial simulations to see who's going to come out on top in the end here. I just also want to point out that my findings were also quite different, and if I have any patience to me after making this video, I'm going to put up timestamps so that you can kind of just jump to the different parts that you'll be most interested in. Though, without any further ado, I want to introduce the World of Darkness. There it is. Oh my gosh. Dun dun dun. This is the spooky game. You gotta know, it's all about spooky stuff. You got your Vampire the Masquerade in there, that's fun more than I thought it would. Your Werewolf the Apocalypse is in here. Ooh, your Wraith the Oblivion is in there as well. You got your, that's Hunter the Reckoning over here. They don't get along with the other splats in here, so they might just get in some fights and be all sorts of spooky drama going on. Your Mummy the Resurrection's a thing that exists. Demon the Fallen. I have no evidence that anyone has ever actually played Demon the Fallen, but people on forums swear by it, claiming that it's like their favorite thing. You got witches. Ooh, they're spooky. You got magic users. The mages here. You got Mage the Ascension. Oh, and it gets even scarier than all this because remember, this takes place in the real world. So not only do you got to deal with all this shit going on, you also have your 9 to 5, and you've still got to pay taxes. Terrifying. So scary. So spooky. Now, talking a bit about what exactly is it that the World of Darkness here focuses on. If you haven't picked up on it, horror, in one word, is what World of Darkness is really all about. A quotation I got from the back of the cover for Vampire the Masquerade's 5th edition core book, the most recent edition to have come out, describes this as a storytelling game of personal and political horror. So you got your shit like vampires and zombies and stuff like that have been stand-ins for all sorts of things. Financial exploitation, consumerism, dark desires, repression, sexuality, etc. And this game, this World of Darkness, actively encourages using these monsters for these same types of contexts in your own games as well. Use them as allegories, please. It makes it really fun. And did I mention spooky? It's creepy, spooky. Everything is spooky. Most of the time that you're playing it is going to be taking place at night. Ideally, your table will also have candles as well, because that just makes the ambiance so much more fun. Next element that the World of Darkness loves to focus on is specifically character-driven drama. You give me your focus, surviving day by day, night by night, just like any other TTRPG. However, there is a expected kind of system in play for World of Darkness, to put it lightly. There's a lot of rules about it and kind of how it should be implemented. but that your characters will establish long-term goals for them that they're going to be using to drive their own individual actions forward. You're going to be having something that your character ultimately is working towards, along with the stories that they are currently being played in, as well as, you know, dealing with their everyday, like, overnight challenges, the issues, the adversity that they have to overcome for all of their stuff. It kind of blurs the lines between how the characters think and feel with how the players themselves also want these goals accomplished here. So the characters need to deal with, like, the I need to eat, I need to make sure I don't get fucking shot, stuff like that. But ultimately, this gives something for the players to focus on as well, which I think is great. Instead of the players also simply focusing on, well, I don't want my character to starve or to get stabbed or something. The last detail that World of Darkness here really likes to focus on will be storytelling and themes, both in your game and above and beyond, like encompassing the players there at your table. This is going to be, whole thing about World of Darkness, especially harping back on Gothic Punk, is going to be about trying to make changes to yourself and to the system around you while still trying to stay true to who you are, or maybe not, maybe actually making negative changes. Even if you're playing as an antagonist, being able to get in the mind of your character and understand why they'll do the things that they do, or otherwise why nice fellows might turn away from their principles in a moment of, say, weakness, is going to be really good, juicy drama, which is ultimately what they really want you to get there. They want you to tell good, fun stories that you're all going to be like, oh my god, do you remember when my character got really deep into crypto? That did happen on our table. But they want to be able to tell good, fun stories that your players are very much going to enjoy reminiscing over, and possibly even including in future games. That's not to say, however, that there aren't going to be rules. It's not just like, oh, screw any rules, just sit around a table and LARP all day. Because despite World of Darkness having a very strong leaning towards LARP communities, historically speaking, the TTRPG is a very well fleshed out, and I feel a very well thought out mechanical system as well to help encourage the creation of these fun stories and play. Really, what you want to set here for like any kind of TTRPG play will be that you're going to be able to make tough decisions for both the in-game characters as well as the players controlling them about what they find most important. And realistically, every single TTRPG needs to have drama to really draw the players in and get them interested. And what is drama, baby? Drama is comedy and tragedy. Gotta have both of these things. You gotta have something really funny happen and something really fucked up happen. Just so long as you're hitting both of those bases, your little blorbros are gonna be doing great. So I've mentioned this before. Splats. The fuck is a splat? What? A splat, just so you know, in the setting of World of Darkness here, is in reference to the being that's being focused on regarding any specific name. So in Vampire the Masquerade, vampires are the splat. In Werewolf the Apocalypse, werewolves are the splat. And fun fact, looking this up, splat was actually originally a name came up in the late 90s. I think it was actually before them by programmers, but it was adopted for World of Darkness by the late 90s. It was named after original dot matrix printers, like old school tech. Whenever you would print asterisk symbols, they usually came out very low resolution, very low quality, and they didn't look very clear. And if you squint your eyes just right, blam, it kind of looks like a little splat bug for you. Specifically, these symbols were used as, like an asterisk is used as a wildcard type character in database searches whenever you go to search for things. So if you wanted to search for example, if you didn't care about the start of something, but it just always ended the same way, you would do asterisk and then type in the rest of the search. So White Wolf Publishing with World of Darkness was actually very good with this. They were very methodical with their splat books. Such that they always had, simplifying it, oversimplifying it, would be, for example, like Vampire Book, or Werewolf Book, or Mage Book, or Wraith Book. So you could simply search, like, asterisk book, and boom, you would get a whole list of, like, all of the most recent publications from White Wolf Publishing at, like, your local library or something, or university, more likely. So that was a really just interesting little history to look up there. Anyway, splats to actually be aware. I hope you really appreciate these Discord these Discord pings. I'm not gonna edit those out. You just have to suffer through them. So splats to be aware of here. The biggest one, the most common one that anyone will have ever actually heard of or even played before, is definitely going to be Vampire the Masquerade. This is the game about your undead bloodsuckers. They live in their own secret society side by side with humans while actively, blending in with them and preying on them. Spoilers, the masquerade, the titular masquerade from Vampire the Masquerade is in reference to, the number one law that the secret vampire society really runs by, which is to uphold the masquerade. The masquerade being the facade, the charade that vampires aren't real. Nobody believes vampires are real. Really? You actually think you go outside and fight a vampire? No, you don't. You're not stupid. And they're preying on that. They're really hoping that that's actually how you would feel, because that's how the people, broadly speaking, in the world of darkness, just regular schmucks living their lives, feel. They don't think that there are any vampires, so vampires are able to maintain that knowledge, because in the case that people got out of hand, there's, millions upon millions of people per individual vampire. So no matter how powerful Dracula was, if everybody really decided, fuck this, pick up their pitchforks, pick up their torches, and kick down the door to his castle, he's going to have to turn to a bat and get the hell out of there, because he's not going to be able to actually win that fight. Next, after Vampire the Masquerade, the second largest splat for World of Darkness here is Werewolf the Apocalypse. Oh, you can guess what that's about. You're going to be your werewolves here. They are indeed the strongest of the changelings, because there is also some other bullshit that you might ever hear about at some point in World of Darkness. And these ones, specifically, werewolves, are the champions of Gaia, which is the living spirit of our Mother Earth. Specifically, the werewolves are attempting to prevent the very death of the planet by fighting against the Wyrm, the Grand Maw, the Great Wyrm, the force of entropy itself, absolute destruction and oblivion. The aforementioned apocalypse in the game's title, actually, is that climate change, just total corporate greed, military conflict, etc., is bringing about the death of our planet and the death of humanity, and Gaia is ultimately some kind of spiritual representation of that, so the werewolves are trying to save that. You gotta make a good argument that the werewolves are just the good guys regarding the world of darkness, but that requires making a few other assumptions about how the whole world really works, because there's a lot of, when it comes to the kind of spiritual side of things, there is actually a lot of literal in-universe debate about what's true and what's not. Also, werewolves have a tendency to lose control of themselves and rampage around as giant living war machines and slaughter everything in their path, so there's that if you really want to look at them as the good guys. And very importantly, Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse both have 5th edition publications made now by, Paradox Interactive. And also, the next one to come up here, I believe, I want to say Werewolf the Apocalypse is the second largest splat, even though Hunter the Reckoning actually got their 5th edition book first. Anyway, these 3 are the top 3 in terms of splats that you're going to be dealing with World of Darkness here. And hunters are just everyday people who kind of realized, oh shit, monsters do exist in our World of Darkness, and they decided, fuck it, they're going to try fighting back against that. There's other shit too. I mentioned Wraith the Oblivion, Mage the Ascension. Those are magic users. Wraiths are just ghosts. There's Changeling the Dreaming, which exists. There's mummies. There's demons. There's all sorts of weird shit. You get the idea. There's a lot of stuff going on in the World of Darkness. And last, definitely least, the regular schmucks who live around the world. What is it? The DKB would call them the Garys. My preferred term is the Jeremys. But yeah, these poor people, these poor sorry saps who still are paying taxes when vampires are drinking people's blood every night. Just like the real world, in World of Darkness, most people don't think monsters are real, and most of the monsters would love to keep it that way, and many of them actively do keep it that way. Now, to discuss a little bit about how the World of Darkness works mechanically, I want to go into some meticulous detail for a bit, if you'll humor me. This is my video, you can't fucking stop me right now. But I just want to explain how the mechanical side of World of Darkness games will actually work, so that you can know what to expect, both when you want to get into playing yourself, and also so you can understand later when I am running my trial simulations of mortals versus gorilla, so you can actually understand what's even going on there, what's happening there. So obvious, it's a TTRPG. You're going to make some character and you're going to play as them. The characters, they get names, you give them some kind of baseline appearance, give them a backstory, give them convictions, which are a real interesting thing I like from World of Darkness, and you also define their relationships with others. Specifically, convictions are, picture, if you will, the ideals from something like D&D, like the goals and hopes and dreams that the character kind of wants to abide by. In World of Darkness, these carry mechanical weight to them, and there's actually rules regarding how you can use them and how you can make use of them to both potentially limit your character as well as benefit them during play. It's something that I'm quite fond of. And for your characters, this is a TTRPG, very basic stuff. You're going to get a character sheet. It's going to list stats, it's going to list traits, skills, abilities, powers, stuff like that. Your merits and your backgrounds, which are specific to each individual character here. And more importantly, these cover both good and bad. You're going to have your advantages and your flaws, which, as far as I'm aware, I think World of Darkness is like the only TTRPG off the top of my head I can think of where mechanical downsides are intentionally built into every character during character creation. Because like D&D or something, the biggest downside I can really say to a character is that they might have like a -1 or a -2 like ability score modifier. That's about the closest I can say to like an actual detriment to playing this character. Oh, in World of Darkness, it is. Your characters can be mechanically dirt broke, never be able to hold down a job, never be able to afford anything. They could be, mechanically speaking, butt ugly. They can just also be really smelly to the point that most social contexts, people don't really want to talk with them or they suffer mechanical penalties for it. You can have stalkers, people that'll just follow you around constantly, whether they want to get revenge on you or they want to get you in bed. Your home that your character lives in can just be fucking haunted. You just are rooming with some ghosts who don't even pay any rent. Your character can have special weaknesses or vulnerabilities to, say, certain damage types or elements or materials that other people are just completely unaffected by. Your character could have it takes place in the real world, they might have a really long rap sheet. Maybe your character decided to stop paying taxes and Uncle Sam found out about it. So you could have outstanding warrants as a mechanical downside for your character. The list goes on and on. Most importantly, though, you have to pick some kind of flaws to go along with your character when you're making them, so that there's just, even in that night-to-night, just regular survival, if there's not much else going on, your character always has some inherent fundamental struggle happening that you'll regularly have to deal with, that it will keep you busy each and every day and night, just kind of staying afloat, staying where you are. Also, once you make your character, they're going to end up in a shitty situation. The whole reason people play TTRPGs is so they can make up some little, Scrimbly Blumbo character and then put them in a blender or put them in a box and just shake it around a whole lot. So you're going to have your character show up in some shitty situation. They're going to have to make rolls and stuff. You're going to have to make decisions for the character and as a player to overcome these. The characters can earn experience through play, and then this experience can be spent for improving your character mechanically in the future. Decisions that get made in-game will also potentially provide access to new equipment. Like, hey, maybe you happen across a firefight between a bunch of vampires and you find that one of them had a really sick-ass machine gun that they dropped when they got their head cut off by a katana. You just pick that machine gun up. Cool, you have a machine gun now. Fucking sick. Hell yeah. And for all TTRPGs, for all games really, something you really want to have for stories of any kind is you're going to have the story hook, rising tension, climax, falling action. The game is going to be challenging for both the characters, obviously the characters, gameplay-wise, but it should also be challenging to the player through the ultimate decisions and tough choices that they have to make through really the game's themes. Importantly as well, sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. As we like to say it, the dice tell stories. Sometimes you just you can't roll to save your life, and other times you just can't roll to fucking fail. You just crit everything and you just succeed easily. Hopefully, though, major important thing is that you're always going to be having fun. Anyway, moving on, speaking mechanically still, let's talk about rolling dice. As I mentioned, everything is going to be done in D10s. Interestingly, also, World of Darkness does not sum dice scores, so D&D, maybe you roll like 3d8 for when you hit something with your Warhammer, and it deals that much damage to you. You sum up the dice, and that's how hard it hits. World of Darkness does not use dice in this manner. It instead uses a success system, where when you roll a d10, face number is going to be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or a 10. If it is a 6 or better, you get a success. If it is a 5 or lower, you do not get a success for that die. Almost every single roll, the way that it's going to work is you're going to roll several dice at once, aiming to get some number of successes, really. Biggest variable that will happen is really going to be the number of dice that you are rolling, instead of like modifiers or stuff that get added to the pool or the roll itself. Dice pools will be made up by looking at your character sheet and counting up some relevant attributes together. Usually it's a combination of two stats, or like a stat and a skill, or like some power rating or something like that. You're typically adding two numbers together, and then you're rolling that many dice. Specifically, what I mean by you're taking these stats and adding them together, stats will be any kind of attribute on your character sheet is going to be assigned a number of dots to it, typically 1 to 5. Some things can also be as low as 0 here, where 1 represents, not good, and 5 represents peak human capability at something. Lower dots you have means the lower dice you're going to roll, means the fewer total successes you're realistically going to be able to get. Exact opposite, if you're rolling higher, if you have more dice, then you're going to be rolling much better overall on average. So this is just going to be like a quick example here. Let's say I showed up to a zoo and I was trying to get into the staff-only area, and they kept trying to stop me, so I wanted to, throw them aside or punch them in the face, get them out of my way here. I would be rolling Strength and Brawl in an attempt to accomplish this task here. For this screenshot at the top of a character sheet here, they would have 2 dots, two dots attributed to Strength, 1 dot attributed to Brawl. In total, for this situation, it would be rolling 3 dice, and then checking how many successes we get on that to determine whether we overall win or not. Also, to mention here, having 0 dots in certain things really does not mean that you are completely brain dead illiterate when it comes to it. So if you had, say, 0 dots in drive skill and 0 dots in technology skill, this doesn't mean like you can't drive a car or like you can't use a computer or a phone. It really means like if shit were to hit the fan, that you would not be particularly good at actually dealing with any type of tense situation. So you wouldn't be able to like swerve through traffic consistently and safely. You would have no real way of hacking into a database, even though you could like turn it on and like search something on Google. The World of Darkness has these built-in competency levels, and for the most part, they're pretty generous. And also importantly, even if you don't have skills associated with something, you can still take a crack at it, like playing the piano or sneaking past a zookeeper or something, even if you don't have very many dots dedicated to the task there. Moving on a bit more. Little details to notice from how these dice are implemented, how the dice rolls function in World of Darkness. Anything that is a 6 or greater counts as a success, while anything that is less than a 6 does not count as a success. One thing you'll notice, there's an even distribution of numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is not a success. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is a success. It means it's functionally any individual die is going to just be equal odds on whether it's a success or not. It's just a coin flip. The expected value that 0.5 successes. Number 2 is the number of failures you roll. The number of non-successes doesn't really matter. If I were to roll like 3 dice for something and get 2 successes, and someone else rolls 9 dice and also gets 2 successes there, even though it's not very likely to roll that many with that many dice, both of these characters would be, in that moment, accomplishing that same task, functionally treated the same. Even though technically the character rolling 9 dice got a lot more failures, none of those failures matter. It's just the number of successes that really matters on. So this really means that the person with 3 dots, like 3 dice that they rolled, basically locked in for that roll. Another person with 9 dice just kind of wasn't as locked in for the roll, but their just natural level of effectiveness and skill and like familiarity with the task that they're doing really carried them ahead. Oh boy, another interesting thing to work in here. I mentioned them before. Criticals do exist in World of Darkness. They are funky. The criticals in 5th edition are also radically different than how they were in older editions like 20th Anniversary or 2nd edition. I'm going to try to not talk about the older editions just because I want to keep this focused on 5th edition. There's a lot of changes that were made for 5th, and I want this video to really just be an introduction for 5th instead of trying to get into the older editions at the same time. Anyway, when you roll your d10, anytime that a 10 shows up, there is a chance that you may be able to get a critical with it. However, these criticals will only occur when your d10s pair up. So whenever you roll a single 10, you should think of calling it a lone 10. So this is just a singular 10 all on its own. You don't have any other 10s in the pool here. 10s are the only thing you want to look for and care about when it comes to criticals here. And any lone 10 is simply worth 1 success. There's nothing special about it. When you're rolling a die pool and you get 2 10s in the same roll, though, those 2 10s will now pair together to make what we want to call a crit pair. This is the lone 10 and crit pair are not really official names. They're just things I came up with because criticals can be pretty tricky to try calculating if you're not used to it, because 5th edition, I don't know of any other game that does criticals this way. So World of Darkness 5th edition, I just kind of think of lone 10 on its own worth 1 success, crit pair is worth more. Specifically, whenever 2 10s pair together and you get that crit pair, each of those 10s is worth double, meaning instead of being worth 1 success each, they're worth 2 successes each. So the entire pair is worth 4 successes each. Another important detail is when you roll an additional lone 10 on top of having rolled a crit pair, say you roll 3 dice and all 3 of them miraculously come up with 10. 2 of those pair together for a crit pair, and the remaining 10 is just a lone pair. So those crit pairs are worth double, but the lone 10 is just worth regular successes. So you get 4 total success for the crit pair and 1 for that lone 10. As a result, you would get 5 successes for that total thing there. Simple, quick, math-wise takeaways from these. Again, the expected value whenever you roll any single individual die is 0.5 successes. So it's really easy to just take the number of dice you're rolling, divide that in half. That's about how many successes you can expect to get, plus or minus a certain amount. The number of expected successes is about half your total dice pool, but do keep in mind that criticals can boost this upwards, and as a result, the actual number is going to be greater than 1/2. I'll go over that a little bit more in detail, the numbers on this, when I'm in the coding section, because I have some better notes written there for that than here. And also importantly, most of the challenges that you're going to face, realistically, you're going to want to be aiming for getting between 2 to 4 successes here. Serious challenges can go above that, and easier things can go down below. This is a screenshot from a table from the Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition's core book. This is kind of showing how many successes should you really expect for accomplishing certain tasks. And you can see most tasks, like your straightforward and moderate tasks, are going to be between 2 to 3 successes. Your challenging tasks will be like 4 successes. And when it starts getting hard and very hard is going to be getting significantly more successes. You're going to be needing like 6-ish successes for this stuff. And then if you need 7 or more successes, this is only for really stand out insane rules the characters are trying to make. So, for example, if you wanted to just lie straight to the face of every single employee there, including, like, the son of the owner of the zoo, that you actually bought the zoo today, so you should be allowed into whatever animal enclosure you want, that would probably be like an 8 or 9 success type role to succeed at. And keep in mind, the easiest way to estimate this would be that you want to have a dice pool of about twice the number of successes here. So that would be very difficult to accomplish, since 5 is the typical max for any individual thing. 4 out of 5, we're getting there. There's a lot of mechanics I wanted to go over here. Just talking more about dice rolls, there will be 3 main categories or forms that a dice roll can come in that you'll be making. The first one, the easiest one, are simply called tests. Usually it's made against the environment or some otherwise kind of static challenge. Think, for example, like kicking down the back door or like jimmying open a window in the back of a zoo so that you can sneak inside. That would be just a simple test here. And for this, the players would assemble some sort of die pool that they and the storyteller work together to determine. Maybe strength and brawl to kick down a door, maybe dexterity and larceny to like unlock a window, something like that. And then you're going to roll this against some difficulty check number. So this might be, say, kicking the door down might require 3 successes. So you would roll strength and brawl, hoping to get 3 successes. If you get 3 or more, you succeed. And in this case, for tests, they almost always encompass binary pass-fail type outcomes, because you can't really kick a door down in a way such that it is only sort of blocking you. Like, either the door is blocking you and you cannot get in, or the door is not blocking you and you can get in. That's a binary outcome there. You can't have the door sort of half blocking you and you only get halfway in. I would really say only being able to get half your body in would be not getting in. So I would just count that as having failed that. On top of tests, there are contests, which are slightly different. Instead of making some static challenge, this would be made against a DC that is created by an opposing character's roll. So let's say that you did get the window open and you're sneaking now through the backside of the zoo. You're trying to get around towards one of the enclosures in particular, and there's some zookeepers there that are kind of keeping an eye out for people because you probably tried getting in already earlier today, so they're keeping watch on everything here. They would be rolling some kind of awareness roll, whereas you would be rolling some kind of stealth roll. And in this case here, it's still going to have the same typical pass-fail criteria as before for tests. It's just that you're going to be, rolling against a DC set by them, which means that a failure on this is usually interpreted as a success of the other character, which in this case would be, do they find you or do they not? Because there's none of this bullshit like video game thing, like, what was that noise? It's really going to be like a binary thing of whether somebody knows you are there or does not know you are there. There's no way that they sort of halfway know that you're there. That's not a real thing. Oh, the last one to talk about, the longest one to talk about, are going to be conflicts. Conflicts are also similar to contests. They're when two characters roll against each other. Conflicts are almost exclusively used for combat, social combat, and physical combat. I'll talk about the difference between those in a little bit. The opposing characters will make some dice pools and roll them against one another. And for the case of conflicts, instead of simply being like a binary pass-fail type outcome, the difference between the number of successes rolled, which will be called the margin for conflicts, will be added as a bonus effect for the winner. Typically, when used for combat, this just directly translates into additional damage that you roll. So, say, for example, you don't feel like you're going to be able to sneak past the security guard at the zoo, the staff there. I don't know if they even have security guards, but you decide to pick up like maybe a pole, like a wooden pole that they use for like feeding or like moving animals around, and you decide to crack it over the back of his head here. So if you rolled, say, 2 successes and he sees this going on and he tries to like grab the pole from you and like try to hit you back, and he rolled like 0 successes, you would hit him with a difference between your number of successes would be 2 here. So you would be winning with a margin of 2, and the pole that you'd be hitting him with would count as a weapon, and maybe it's like an improvised +1 damage weapon. So you would be hitting him for 2 damage from your margin +1 from this weapon here for a total of 3 damage on that combat roll there. You also, interesting with World of Darkness, there isn't just physical combat, there is also social combat. Social combat is a real interesting feature, I find. It is, whereas physical combat is about your physical state of being and your capacity for carrying yourself on, your mental state of being, your mental fortitude, your mental durability, like your emotional stability, your social standing, anything like this can be a stand-in for social combat, where usually fights are won with vicious words and insults or making accusations of others. And for the case of this, the audience is usually considered the weapon here. Because, let's say, for example, you did crack this zookeeper over the back of the head with a pole, and then he and his several friends all team up and beat the crap out of you, and they pants you and they throw you outside and you start peeing your pants, and they all point and laugh at you. And that's going to hurt physically, but it's also going to hurt yourself kind of like morale-wise and emotionally here. But that's going to hurt a lot harder when you find out later that they were taking a video of that and they posted it on social media, and then you got on the news, and now everybody in your town knows that you peed your pants trying to break into the zoo. That's a situation where social combat can make a significant impact on how your character will proceed forwards. And yeah, one last rule for conflicts. Whenever you roll a tie, let's say you both rolled 2 successes, technically the margin here is 0. The way that it works is both characters are counted as if they had 1 with a margin of 1 and deals that damage plus any damage from weapons and the like to their opponents. However, they also take damage back. So you may notice, like, if I rolled 2 successes and they rolled 2 successes, I deal 1 damage to them because it functionally acts as if I have a margin of 1. But if I roll 3 successes and they roll 2, I still only deal 1 damage to them. What gives? I roll better. How come I don't hit harder? The reason here is because on the tie, you take damage. Spoilers, that's going to come up a little bit. Okay, 5 out of 5. We're almost done talking about the mechanics. What does it mean to take damage if you don't have some way of tracking that? So specifically, character sheets are going to have your health trackers and your willpower trackers. And these are going to determine your character's overall survivability, both mentally and physically. These are managed with what are called trackers, and they look like this. This is just a screenshot from one of the character sheets that I have. The character sheets can look all sorts of different ways, different formattings, different colors, text, everything, stuff like that. So this is just one way that it might look. In this case, this is an example of a character who has 7 points of health and 4 points of willpower. And yeah, the health is for tracking physical damage your character suffers, and the willpower tracker is for tracking mental degradation and emotional torment, social injury, stuff like that. Damage comes in 2 flavors in World of Darkness. There is superficial damage. This gets represented on your trackers with a slash, and superficial damage is not particularly bad to suffer. It's actually it's something, think of it like something that you could reasonably walk off. It doesn't pose an immediate health risk to you. So this would be the likes of, say, bruises, bumps, scrapes, light burns, maybe some small electrical shocks, a little bit of suffocation, stuff like that. Things that don't immediately take you out of action here. There is an added effect that makes superficial significantly less potentially harmful and life-threatening than the next type of damage that's coming here. When you take superficial damage, that damage is actually halved before it gets added to your tracker. So if there was a case where you dealt, for example, 4 damage to an opponent, but you were dealing superficial damage, like just bopping them on the head with a mop or something you found, that would deal 4 points of superficial damage. And that means when they go to add damage to their tracker, they have that 4 down to 2, and then only add 2 slashes onto their health tracker here. As their health tracker gets filled up with superficial damage, eventually it can get all the way filled up, and if it does, it will overflow into aggravated damage. Also, whenever damage gets halved for any reason, it just always rounds up. So if you were to take 1 point of damage, this gets halved down to 0.5, and then rounds back up to 1. If you took 5 damage, it halves down to 2.5, rounds up to 3. So having damage will still always result in you taking some amount of damage here. The next type of damage you can take is represented with an X. This is actually really bad to take. This is aggravated damage. Aggravated damage can come with debilitating side effects, including paralysis, generally getting stunned. It can result in taking penalties to rolls moving forwards. It can create the inability to do certain actions, like say both of your hands get crushed by maybe one of the gates gets opened up and I don't know, a rhino comes out of the zoo and it steps on both of your hands after you got thrown down to the ground by the zookeepers. In this case, you would be taking aggravated damage because of just how severe that damage is. You may not be able to use your hands for quite some time here. Aggravated damage does pose a legitimate health threat to you, and the worst effect that aggravated damage can apply is when you take this damage, too much of it, you fill up your health tracker completely, your character dies. A little anticlimactic for your willpower tracker. If you fill up on aggravated willpower damage, you don't actually have any real problems occur, apart from being constantly mentally impaired and fatigued and being kind of barely able to emotionally keep yourself going forwards. It's a little bit of a shame that there isn't a comatose type state or some kind of other emotional turmoil that you get exposed to with this, but it's just the way that it is here. So now, as an example of taking damage, let's say the zookeeper slaps you in the face because you keep just asking to get into the animal enclosures and she's sick of your shit now. Boom, you take 1 point of damage. 1 point of superficial damage, have that to 0.5, rounds up to 1, you just take 1 point of damage. You slap her back, suddenly, not only are the other zookeepers stepping in, but several of the, other zoogoers there get in here, and they all team up on you to beat the shit out of you. Let's say that they deal 4 damage to you. That gets halved, turned into 2. Boom, you take 2 points of superficial damage here. Trying to get the hell away from all of them, you run out into, I don't know, like you run out of the parking lot there. You're plotting your revenge already, and you're not paying attention, and boom, somebody's car just slams right into you and hits you right on your bad knee. Of course it does. It always does. You take 1 point of, let's say, aggravated damage from that. That fills up from the right, bam. Superficial comes in from the left, aggravated damage comes in from the right here. Let's say that this is going from bad to worse. One of the zookeepers was like, I don't know, maybe they were wrestling with one of the animals inside there, and they totally missed with their tranquilizer dart, and it goes really far out into the parking lot and ends up hitting you right in the neck. So you take some of the poison there, and you also, of course, take like a big needle stabbing into you. That might be another point of aggravated damage. It's not looking good for our character here. I don't know, some little kid starts hitting you with his stick because his parents don't have control of him, and you're just not really in a state to really stop him. You take some more damage here, blam. If you take even additional damage on top of that, eventually your entire tracker is going to be filled up with damage. And at this state, when either of the trackers gets fully filled up, that character is considered impaired. So physically impaired for their health, mentally impaired for their willpower tracker. And what that means is it is a easy to track status effect. Just look at your health tracker to determine whether you're impaired or not. If you're physically impaired, any physical rolls you make, rolls that use your physical stats like your strength or your dexterity or something, will suffer a -2 die penalty. And for willpower, your mental stat, this is going to cause any rolls using your social stats or your mental stats to be suffering a -2 die penalty for them. So you really don't want to get impaired. It just, bad things pile up. The rich get richer, and the shit eat more shit, as they say. So if you were to take additional damage, let's say that kid keeps fucking hitting you, and it's gotten to the point where it's like he's got like his little like T-Rex gator plastic toy thing, and he keeps like snapping at your face, and he grabs on like your ear and he rips your earring out. And like at this point, like he's already like cut into you a bit, and he's hitting you with the needle point of your own earring. And this is causing you to bleed profusely from your face. That could add, even though it normally would just be tiny like slash lacerations, this would just be superficial damage. Your character is so beat to shit that this is now becoming very problematic for them, and this will convert directly into aggravated damage. You take some more shit on top of this, things are looking real bad for you, and if nobody calls an ambulance, or like JoJo Part 4, the ambulance runs you over when it gets there, blammo, your character is fucking dead. Rest in peace, you idiot. And with that, we are 5 out of 5 finally done talking about the mechanics behind World of Darkness. Thank you for sitting with me through all of that. You fucking idiot. You dunce. You thought we were almost done, didn't you? That's what you get for that's what you get for me lying straight to your face, you idiot, you stupid head. But really, there's just a few more things that I wanted to talk about. Mechanically speaking, just to go over a little bit here, every splat has their own unique additions to how the games work. Like Vampire the Masquerade has the hunger mechanic, and vampires have their discipline powers, which are the supernatural abilities that they can do, like turn into a bat, like mental domination and mind control, emotional like swaying and manipulation, super strength, super speed, all the stuff like that. Werewolf the Apocalypse has their rage as well as their rights and their gifts from like the moon auspice shit that they're born onto, the magic stuff that they can do with spirits and stuff like that. Mage the Ascension has fucking quintessence and paradox. You get the idea. Everything has their own stuff that they bring. Every splat has their own little unique details they bring. They're like each splat is like some child class to the baseline World of Darkness like parent character class. So everyone has kind of like the same fundamental like stats and health tracker and willpower tracker, stuff like that. Different splats will add additional things on top of that too. Another detail about conflicts, because you can never be done talking about conflicts, is that they are used for handling combat, and they can be split into 2 different types. There are attacks and there are defense. Whenever a combat turn happens, characters will be allowed to make 1 attack dice pool for whatever they want to do. Like say you walk into the zoo and you have a fucking gun and you're like, I'm going to attack anyone this turn. You're going to be rolling probably like dexterity and firearms, or like composure and firearms, to go around and like shoot people there. If you wanted to shoot just 1 person, you would just be rolling your entire dice pool against them. However, if you wanted to shoot multiple people, like let's say some brave good Samaritan steps up, and also that fucking bitch of a zookeeper that slapped you back earlier also tries to stop you here. If you wanted to shoot both of them, you would have to split your dice pool up among them. And you can split that evenly. Like, say you would roll 8 dice for this, you could split like 4 against her and then 4 against the dude charging you. You might also say she might be an easier target, so I'll put 2 dice against her and then 6 dice for your 8 total dice pool. In this case, bullets definitely deal aggravated damage to mortals. They can deal them at a range pretty easily, and most guns are going to be dealing between +2 to +4 damage. So even if you only get like 1 or 2 successes over them, you'll be dealing several points of aggravated damage. And if you roll real well, you might simply kill them outright in one turn. You might just do all of their health in one go. Blam. When it comes to defense, however, in a conflict, any characters can choose to defend how they want via like blocking or dodging, something like that, instead of making an attack. And when you succeed on a defense roll, like let's say that chick sees you aiming at her and she fucking dives for cover because, oh my god, I'm not gonna die for this shit. If she were to succeed, she gets more successes than you. The margin for her conflict pool is simply ignored and she does not take damage. You cannot deal damage while defending. Whereas that guy, maybe he was like attacking you and both of you, like he was actually charging at you trying to like beat you up. So he's probably rolling strength and brawl, or maybe dex and brawl to reach you quick enough while you're trying to roll like say dex and firearms to shoot at him. If you both tie there, he will beat you up some and deal some damage to you because, you know, conflicts on a tie, it counts as if you each win with a margin of 1. But that also means you do shoot him, which is pretty big in your advantage here. Yeah, we're getting to some dark places already in this video that I wasn't predicting, but it's just a logical conclusion of when a man who's lost everything is trying his hardest to get into a zoo. And yeah, each defense roll, another interesting roll here, while your attack pool can only be rolled once, whether you divvy it up among multiple targets or you dedicate it all to a single target, you can only roll it once. Your defensive rolls, you can roll as many times as you would like. In a combat turn, whenever you make a successive roll against some like person targeting you here, the successive defense rolls that happen on this are going to be suffering -1 die penalty. So if you were, for example, to be shooting these people, like shooting at these people, I should say, maybe not get that dark yet, and some other Good Samaritan whips out his own fucking concealed carry and starts shooting at your ass here, you've already spent up your own attack pool here, so you would not be able to shoot back, but you could still defend. Because this would be the second character that has targeted you, the first being the Good Samaritan charging at you to put you down, you fucking lunatic, crazed gunman here. The second person shooting at you, your defense pool here will be suffering a -1 die penalty. If another person, like, if you stood up in front of a whole wall of people, like a firing squad, maybe there's like 20 people all with guns trained on you, like any last words, and you say like, yeah, hit this, and you try hitting like a sick move to dodge all of it, you'll be able to roll your dice pool against the first one, no problem. However, against the second one, you're going to have a -1 die penalty. Against the third volley, you're going to have a -2 die penalty. Against the next volley, -3 die penalty, so on and so forth. Eventually, you'll hit the point, maybe foreshadowing about something in the future. Eventually, you could hit the point where the penalties on your dice roll are so severe that it technically would hit 0 or go negative. For World of Darkness, general rule of thumb is you can never roll less than 1 die. If you are making a roll, the worst it can possibly be is 1 die. If for some reason, like the storyteller, the DM, whoever, really decides that the scenario really does warrant an extreme negative penalty on you, and your dice pool goes to like -2 or -3, most likely they'll just decide you don't even get to roll, you just automatically fail this, because there'd be no realistic way that you should be able to succeed in a situation like that. Okay, so that's just about everything for conflicts I wanted to talk about here. As you may notice, World of Darkness, kind of a lot going on when it gets to combat. It's actually suggested that combat only be used sparingly to spice things up. The whole World of Darkness system here, there's 3 main kind of columns of stats. There's your physical stuff, your social stuff, and your mental stuff. And when it gets to the point of like everyone's just gonna unga-bunga combat hit each other all the time, everything else tends to fall apart and you tend to just roll the same physical stuff over and over and over again. So to give room for anything else to breathe, the Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition core book has an auxiliary rule that can be employed at any point that is called the 3 turns and out. And the way that the 3 turns and out rule works, it's really useful for mixing up otherwise stale pace of like rolling the same combat and defense pools over and over. Like, I don't know, you get in a fist fight outside of a parking lot outside the zoo because the staff are all actively trying to prevent you from getting in, but you brought your friends now and you're all just kind of like trying to beat the crap out of them. If conflicts like this don't get resolved, like plainly resolved within 3 turns, storytellers within their right to simply introduce something that mixes up the scene in some way. So like maybe the cops show up to fucking arrest everyone and everyone tries to split now, or maybe like more people, all of the pissed off like, you know, just patrons from the zoo come out and they're all mad at you and they all join in the fight. So now it's like instead of 3 against 3, now it's maybe like 3 against 30, so you want to get the hell out of there. Maybe the zookeepers are too busy because they're fist fighting in the parking lot outside the zoo that some of the cages aren't being like maintained and managed, and some of the animals are able to get out and start causing havoc everywhere. Like something to spice it up and change the scene so that you aren't simply just rolling the same combat pools over and over again. It's just something to keep it real interesting there. And now we should be done going over all, not even we should, we are done, I promise now. We are done going over the mechanics that I wanted to talk about. All we really need to discuss now is going to be the characters that are going to be involved with our simulations coming up. Okay, it's time to introduce, at long last, our contestants here. So coming in on the left side here is going to be our boy, you know him, you love him, Jeremy the Weak Mortal here. Yeah, he's ready for this. A Weak Mortal has, I think I wrote that in my notes here. The Weak Mortal has dog shit abysmal stats. They have nothing going for them. Jeremy is about the lowest life form that can still be generously called an adult human being. Oh no, that's nothing really to dance over, but my man's, he's rolling like a median dice pool of 1 die here, and like his best dice pools are usually about maybe 2 or 3 dice, so he's really not a champion. If you remember from the table before, the number of successes that we were hoping to achieve for things, he would not be able to accomplish consistently even pretty typical, like just regular routine tasks. Anyway, you know, actually, I guess, yeah, to explain a little bit, the reason, what the fuck does Weak Mortal mean here? A Weak Mortal is a classification that is given. There's a handful of them. There is the Weak Mortal, there's the Average Mortal, the Gifted Mortal, all this stuff like this. The Weak Mortal is a stand-in that they're really intended to be as like a throwaway background character. They're meant to just be paper thin, easily brushed aside by like any significant character as soon as something gets in the way. So like if you're at like a Denny's after the zoo, and some of the people that were like patrons from the zoo followed you there because they're not done with this fight, any random like old lady that would happen to be there eating at the Denny's as well, she would be just build her up as a Weak Mortal. If she ever has to like get involved in this fight, if someone tries throwing a punch at her, they're probably just knocking her lights out because she's got nothing going for her there. They're made of wet paper compared to your typical player characters. So I think it's fair to say that the Weak Mortal here is a very good stand-in for just a generic guy in our use case here. And speaking of our case here, I think it's time we bring out the star of the show, Jeremy's opponent in the upcoming battle, the Gorilla. He's back for a vengeance here. Gorilla is much stronger than a typical human. If this was a simple one-on-one encounter, poor Jeremy does not stand any chance at all. The Gorilla's combat dice pool is literally 7 times larger than Weak Mortal Jeremy's here. It would be lights out for poor old Jeremy almost instantly. However, keep in mind, Jeremy's got some friends that he's bringing along, 99 of them in fact, and that might just be able to turn the odds in his favor. For no particular reason, not foreshadowing anything, let's take a look at a few potential backup characters just in case something bad were to happen to our friend Jeremy here. Introducing, all grown up now, Mr. Jeremy. This is now an Average Mortal stat block. He's not a Weak Mortal. He's got a little bit going on for him. He's not as laughably weak. He is still nothing special. His median dice pool is, I think, like 2 now instead of 1. Woo. Mr. Jeremy, I guess he's got like a nice house going for him too, you can see that. Doesn't have any furnishings there, but he seems to be enjoying it enough himself. But yeah, most importantly, he's not very wimpy. He's not as wimpy as Jeremy here. He is at least the equivalent of a soaked box of cardboard compared to like the single sheet of paper that Weak Mortal Jeremy is. Speaking of weak mortals, though, I think it's time we introduced a different idea here, because weak mortals are not necessarily all built the same way. In fact, they have very few dots that they get to kind of allocate to different things for them. But you can actually build them in a particular way that they're not half bad at certain things. In fact, Jacked Jeremy here, I guess he's been working out in Mexico or something, training for this moment. He is a combat optimized weak mortal. So his dice pools for this kind of fight that's going to be taking place here with the gorillas is going to be 4 dice compared to Mr. Jeremy's 3, and going to be compared against weak Jeremy's 1. And the gorilla, I mentioned before, 7 times dice pool. Yeah, spoilers. Son of Harambe rolls 7 dice for combat rolls. So they really don't still. Neither of them really stands a particular chance in any sort of one-on-one fight. I mean, Jack Jeremy, he got like a part-time gig at like a Planet Fitness or something like this. But I don't know. He could rip through a shirt, but that makes him more lethal than Mr. Jeremy. But Gorilla is a little bit stronger than a shirt. I don't know if they're going to be able to really stand up to the Gorilla in these fights here. The Gorilla will absolutely wallop these fucking schmucks in a one-on-one fight. They are bringing a couple tens of their friends along. That could change something, but just in case it doesn't, just in case we really have to, there is another Jeremy. He rarely ever sees the light of day. Usually the canopy overhead is too dense to ever get a good sight of him, whether you're looking through binoculars or whether you're looking through the eyes of one of his victims. Since birth, he has been dedicating himself to one goal and one goal only: the eradication of gorillas with his own hands. We don't want to use him, but if we have to, our final defense against this gorilla menace: the deadly mortal, Jeremy the Ripper. He's ruthless, he is relentless, he is ready to fight, and he is ready to die. I wouldn't blame our gorilla friend for fleeing at the mere sight of this thing, if you can call him a person still. But if all else fails, we do have these big guns that we can bring out. And I do mean all 100 Jeremy the Rippers that we could bring out. If it does come to that, though, may God have mercy on us all. Okay, we're back. This time I'm going to be walking us through a bit of the character sheets here so we can see what are the actual character stats that we're working with that we're going to be facing up here. I intended this to be a short video. Realized, looking at a little bit of the runtime during the last recording, that this is not going to be a short video. I apologize for nothing. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. So I'm just using Vampire the Masquerade character sheets for this because I didn't happen to have anything better on hand, so this is going to be good enough for our purposes here. Introducing Jeremy, our weak mortal. He's not very much going on with this character sheet here. You can tell he's got the... I was not kidding when I said that his median dice pool is going to be 1 here. So he's got his physical, his social, and his mental. And this whole column goes down here. So these are all your physical stats, and then these are your physical associated skills. And these are your social, etc. Going down, mental, you get the idea here. So you can see like he plays piano. He went to school for like cinematography. He is not trained to fight gorillas even remotely. So little Jeremy here, he's a little bit out of his depth in this situation here. He's only hoping that he can survive this one battle here. He's hoping to get a girlfriend, but honestly, I don't know if there's gonna be enough Jeremy to go around after the gorilla bout here to actually deal with that. So we can check down here. You can see he's got 4 health and he has 2 willpower. Ooh. I don't really like Jeremy's odds with this. If he wanted to roll, say, strength and brawl to try wrestling with a gorilla, he rolls 1 die. That's not great for him. A potential upside to this, if he gets physically impaired, in, for example, let's say a gorilla were to bite onto his throat, and he doesn't have very much time to live after that, the minus 2 die penalty doesn't do anything because he's already rolling the minimum number of dice that can be rolled. So he's got that going for him. I built this character up more to be like I think of him kind of like a Zoomer Gen Alpha type. The kid's on their phone. Kid's got that money, I guess. He's working at McDonald's, for God's sake. My man's not ready to deal with the gorilla at all. So he's really more oriented towards like being a personable type guy instead of being like a physical powerhouse here. Which, speaking of, let's look at our gorilla here. I'm just gonna give a spoiler here. He absolutely can achieve this desire without much difficulty in this fight here. Question is killing one man in one punch enough? And he's, you may notice, a little bare on the stats here. That's because, technically speaking, the way that you handle animals in the rulebook is different than the way that you would handle normal characters. You don't attribute stats to them. Instead, you create a stat block for them. So, for example, a dog. Like this dog here, for any physical dice pools, for standard physical dice pools, it would roll 5 dice. 1 for social tests, 1 for mental tests. It has 5 health, 2 willpower, and then there are some particular rolls. If it were to roll, say, Brawl, instead of just 5, it would be rolling 6 total dice. This is to just make it very easy for the storyteller about what should the capability of this type of creature really be, without needing to try worrying about how do I translate skills and stats and stuff intended for working with like a sentient humanoid creature to like a dog or a rat or a bird. Like how do I do that? The answer is you just use a stat block like this. So I'm going to explain a bit of my justification for this. I can't imagine anybody's going to be too upset about this, but just in case they are, fuck you, asshole. Who the fuck are you? You making this video? No, I am. In this case, for the standard dice pools, they are like a kind of fusion between animals that I thought made the most sense from the examples given in the Vampire 5th Edition core rulebook are between a bear and a horse. And the reason for this is because these are large animals that covers both the range of animals that kind of, you know, get into fights with things, but also are more herbivorous, because gorillas, despite their massive fucking like sharp teeth, they eat like plant stems and like leaves and shit like that. So yeah, they're, what would I even put here? Yeah, predator type herbivore. So they eat plant life, so that's not really going to come into play there. In this case, though, I picked 7 physical, 1 social, and 1 mental, which is the same stats as a bear. My idea is that gorilla, you could roughly think of it as about the same size as a bear, and realistically, this does also mean, you know, even if it's just rolling any kind of mundane physical check, it would be rolling with superhuman strength. The maximum that a human can possibly have would be 5 dots in something. And our gorilla baseline stat is 7. So we're giving this gorilla inhuman strength already. We're also giving this gorilla 8 health. The reason for that is that's the same pool as this bear here. We can see that the horse actually has less health than that, even though I think you might be able to make an argument that a horse is kind of a bigger thing. My justification for this is because the horse is not really intended to get into fights with things. So if a fight happens, the horse just kind of gets out of there, whereas the bear is willing to slug it out, and a gorilla is also willing and able to slug it out, especially if 100 men were to descend upon it. So in this case, it made the most sense to use the same stat for that as the bear. Every single animal here is just given 1 social and 1 mental regardless. Even the dog only gets 1 social and 1 mental. Man's best friend is just not deserving of a second dot in social skills, I guess. That's how World of Darkness feels. For the exceptional dice pools, I selected Awareness and Intimidation. Intimidation at 6, this is the matching of the bear. He actually has better exceptional dice pool and awareness than the bear. The reason for that, instead of having a 3, I give him a 4, which is taken from the horse here, because the horse is an herbivore. It makes sense to me. The prey type animals should have higher awareness, and in fact, I think it's fair to say that we see that. Like the bat, for example, or like the rat have like awareness 5. The bat has awareness 7, whereas the bird of prey here, compared to that bat's 7, only has an awareness of 6, despite being like a larger animal here. The wolf has an awareness of 3. The dog has an awareness of 4, although this is really like a guard dog here. But yeah, I would really say that the horse having 4 awareness is because it needs to be more aware of its surroundings as a prey animal, as an herbivore, than the bear does. Which is beneficial for our gorilla, being the fact that it, you know, gets into fights with things, but it also is an herbivore. This is actually quite a plus for it. I am giving it only 2 dots of willpower, even though the bear has 3 dots here. I'm selecting the horse's willpower here because when I look at things, the bat, the rat, these are kind of like your small animals along with the bird of prey. The bird of prey is the carnivore here. It has 2 willpower. The dog isn't really like a hunter-killer type animal. It only has 2 willpower, whereas like a direct equivalent of that, the wolf, has 3 willpower. And for the large animals here, the horse, the prey animal herbivore here, has 2 willpower, while the bear has 3. To me, it makes sense that needing to be like a hunter-type animal warrants having this additional willpower, which the gorilla is an herbivore, so it doesn't get. Also going to give a slight spoiler. I don't really care much about this part because I didn't really bother implementing much of the willpower simulation into the rolls here because it's not actually going to make a really big deal. Make some re-rolls there. It's not going to be very. They have the same willpower. Jeremy, working at McDonald's gives you the exact same willpower as a gorilla. That's the mental fortitude that you need to work at a McDonald's there. But yeah, so 8 health. Really, it's going to be whenever it attacks or defends, we'll be rolling 7 dice as its base. Willpower is not really going to matter. These other ones also not really going to matter at all. So 8 health and roll 7 dice is what you really need to be a takeaway from this. Whereas Jeremy is 4 health, rolls 1 dice. It's not looking good for him. Although we have more than one Jeremy to go through here. We got a couple. We got Mr. Jeremy, our adult stand-in of Jeremy here. You've got the millennial generation now and works as a salaryman. Oh god, the millennial dream, getting a salary. He still plays piano. He still went to school for cinematography, but he's built much the same way that weak mortal Jeremy was, in that he's not really intended to be like a physical powerhouse type character. It's more of like if you were to just meet like a swell guy at the bar, it would be like a Mr. Jeremy type thing, and his son would be like a Jeremy, something like that. So yeah, you can see he works in finance and he definitely uses computers regularly for his job. He's got a lot of challenging spreadsheets. He's definitely like a spreadsheet shepherd type career man. He's really living the dream if you think about it. And he has marginal increases to his stats around, but I mean, even tiny increases over weak mortal Jeremy are really going to add up here. So he would be rolling 3 dice for his attacking pool here. And he actually has 5 health and 3 willpower. We've finally beaten we have finally beaten Son of Harambe in something, and it is that he has 1 more point of a stat that is not going to be getting used for the upcoming challenges here. Good job, Mr. Jeremy. Beyond Mr. Jeremy, in case we need a little bit more firepower, however, we also have Jacked Jeremy. Yeah, he has hit those protein shakes. He's hit the gym there. My god, he is a bloodthirsty bastard. But you can see here, he has the exact same stat number of dots distributed around. So he's got like 2 dots in some stuff, 2 dots in 2 things among his attributes up here. He has instead, this one here, he has instead put those into strength and stamina. And then he assigned his 2 dots. He's still working on the piano here, but he dropped out of film school so that he could learn how to work out at the gym here. So he is now rolling 4 dice to attack. He also has got 5 health. He's back down to 2 willpower. So I mean, he's not really that huge a change. Yeah, he works at a plate of fitness now, but that's not really going to make a tremendous difference over Mr. Jeremy realistically. And last but not least, definitely not least, we have the monster that is Jeremy the Ripper. He is a deadly mortal. Deadly mortals, as you can tell, have an insane distribution. He lives in the moment for the hunt. He's got one goal in mind, and it is taking down this gorilla. He actually has specialized in fighting gorillas. I didn't mention them before. These boxes here, these are called specializations or specialties. They are for each skill. If you were to make a roll related to that, say if you were to he's still learning piano, if you were to try, say, charisma and performance to play piano here, he would be rolling his 2 from charisma. Oh my gosh, please. Rolling his 2 from charisma. He'd be rolling his +2 from performance for 4 dice. And because his specialty can apply to the roll, he will add 1 additional die for that. Specialties are meant to be something that can really spice things up and make your character more uniquely good at something. They are intended to be very, niche topics here. So you couldn't just take, brawl specialty punching. That is a load of shit that the rules explicitly say to not allow in. They are intended to be only ever applicable under specific circumstances that don't happen very often. In fact, if you're rolling such that your specialty occurs most of the time, you are either going out of your way, like very actively going far out of your way to ensure you only engage in situations you will excel at, or you have picked a specialty that is too broad and realistically it needs to be reevaluated before you can move forward with more play, because you're not supposed to be rolling nonstop. In this case, though, because there's only one thing that'll be happening here, a fight between man and gorilla, this specialty does apply because it would not apply in any other combat context. So in this case, he does get to use his specialty. He will be rolling 5 plus 5 plus the 1 from the specialty, 11 dice combat pool for our deadly mortal here, as well as a plethora of other skills that could prove useful in a potential hunt. My man's rocking in with 8 health. He's just as tanky and durable as a gorilla, and he has 7 willpower, more than enough to see himself through any hunt, no matter how long it lasts. An interesting thing also that I am adding in here to make the gorilla more powerful, for funsies, whenever one of these mortals is going to be smacking at the gorilla with their little, like, you know, their hands, their feet, just kicking at him or something, they will be dealing superficial damage. The gorilla, being incredibly physically strong, having huge limbs that I can just slam down on them, easy peasy, and also the sharp teeth that it has, it just makes sense to me to rule that the gorilla, with all of its attacks, will be dealing aggravated damage. So in this case, the mortals will have, even though deadly Jeremy the Ripper here does have the same health as our boy Son of Harambe, he will have to deal significantly more damage because A, he has to kill the gorilla twice over. He has to be able to hit the gorilla until it, you know, fills up with superficial damage, and then keep hitting it again until that superficial all converts into a full bar of aggravated, basically killing it twice. Also, whenever he deals damage to it, that damage gets halved. So these dice might seem nasty, but honestly, it's kind of a tough call. How well is this going to really work for him? Because one good roll from that gorilla could still just rip and tear any of these mortals apart willy-nilly. Like, if the gorilla rolled like a critical and 2 successes, he rolls 6 successes. Every other Jeremy, apart from Deadly Mortal, who would barely survive that much damage, every other mortal here is just instantly killed. So, yeah, this gorilla is going to have an interesting time in this fight. Okay, yeah, this wouldn't be a full DKB plagiarism video if I didn't include some kind of simulation going on here. I'm going to go a bit more into some of the math and a bit of my implementation for how this works here. My v5dice.h, this is a file that I made for like a project a while back for a different Vampire the Masquerade dice roller that I made. And I just happened to have it. I figured, why not try employing it here? And I ended up making like the little character class to go with this, and then implementing several different trials to walk us through to see who would win for our trial mortal here, the gorilla or our weak mortal. And then if need be, I can change the weak mortal. I can change the number of trials that we're doing. This is one detail I did not talk about before. I'll bring it up now, only for fairness. In theory, how many people do you think could be attacking a gorilla at one time? Mechanically, these rules are never actually made explicitly clear in World of Darkness here. It's expected to kind of just like use your own imagination to picture this, because like D&D rules, you'd be able to say like 8 people. If you have like a 3x3 grid of just squares, the gorilla in the middle taking up 1 tile, you could have the surrounding 8 tiles on its perimeter all be people attacking it at the same time. So there's an easy way to say it's 8. If you had like a hexagonal grid, you'd be able to say 6 are up to and surrounding it. For World of Darkness, because there is no like miniatures, you don't do anything like that, it's all theater of the mind type stuff, you have to kind of think how many would be involved here, and my brain thought around like 3 or 4 really makes the most sense to me. I feel like nobody could really argue with 4 because there's a mortal in the front, and then one to your left, one to your right, and one behind you, and they're all just kind of like punching straight forward at you. Like, that seems very reasonable to say that are hitting you. And then I thought about it, like, what if one of them went for like a really big, like, swinging type kick? Like, the one to the gorilla's left went for like a swinging kick and hit the gorilla in the back of the head. But at the same time that the Jeremy from behind was throwing his haymaker punch at the back of the gorilla's head, he might hit his foot there. So it's a little bit of a possibility that there could still be some interference from other nearby people if you have that many people creating one target. So I'm taking like the delta or the Y diagram here, like 3-phase power, 120 degrees out of phase here. If we make the full arc around them with 120 degrees between each individual, there is plentiful space. They shouldn't be able to hit each other whatsoever. 3 of them can be attacking at the same time. This seems really like a low number compared to something like D&D, and it is, but then again, the other findings that we've been finding so far, that DKB was finding in his video of what, like 14 mortals was all it really took to beat down a gorilla. Trust me when I say this, these numbers, it's going to be an interesting show for Jeremy. It's going to be an interesting show. It is good that we have built out all of our Jeremys here. Also going to show that. We have our weak mortal, average mortal, the weak mortal combat optimized, and then our deadly mortal, and of course, star of the show, our gorilla here, son of Harambe. Built up their damage types. Indeed, all of the mortals will just be dealing superficial damage, whereas the gorilla will be dealing aggravated damage here. Built up all of their health and their attack pools, defense pools, etc. All exactly how it was shown in the character sheets before. You can look at the numbers here if you want to go double check that for me. But I think I did a decent job on that. I'm going to go into a bit of detail. Oh, pragma balls. I'm gonna go a little bit into detail about how I had this implemented here. I used the rand function from standard library to really make this work. And I could talk a little bit more about some of the numbers here as well for all the nerds who've made it this far, or skipped ahead. Hopefully I've actually implemented the timestamps in the video. For the maximum number of successes, this is an interesting metric that we're looking for because in theory, if this meets or surpasses, say, a mortal Jeremy's health, then that Jeremy is potentially toast in a single blow from our gorilla. It's possible the Jeremy rolls bad, the gorilla rolls up to this number of successes and just wipes the floor with him with aggravated damage here. So for any roll that you want to look at, the peak maximum number of successes possible is equal to 2n minus n modulo 2, where n is your dice pool size. So if you were rolling 3 dice, for example, it would be 2n is 6 minus n modulo 2 is 1. It would be 5 successes is possible here. So it's different for even pools versus odd pools here. Another interesting quirk I got from working on this is that when you have an even pool, there's actually a discontinuous set of number of successes that you could possibly achieve here. You cannot get one less than double the dice pool, although you can get up to double the dice pool here. Which, think about it, like if I rolled 3, whereas I also want to point out, that's not true for an odd number of pools. You can get readily up to the maximum number of successes. There's no jump here. But think of, if I rolled 3 dice, I got 3 10s, I would get a crit pair of 10s worth 4 total successes, and a lone 10 that is worth 1 success. So that's where I get 5 successes for that. If I were to add 1 more die in there, however, if it's just a regular success, then that 5 goes up to 6. But if it were another 10, then I would have 2 crit pairs. And the critical pairs is what creates this discontinuous jump here. And the 2 crit pairs, each of them worth 4, would mean it's a total of 8, which means that my possibility of successes goes straight from a 5 maximum up to 5 and 6 and 8, but not 7. So that's just a quirky little detail about how this works. And then, assigning different values here, we can see that 5 in, I'm just going to say 5 and lower here is going to be a failure, and 6 and above is going to be a success, with 10s being a potential for a critical. Different splats do have ways of introducing basically critical failures. They used to be called in older editions botches. There is no just plain botch anymore, and the way that criticals were modified for 5th edition, I think, is a very elegant and interesting solution to make criticals have a big sway in things, but it's not as simple as, oh, a critical is just an automatic guaranteed win at whatever you're trying to do. And they also don't show up like super often either. I think that they hit a really nice balance with this. And then your pool result can be like a success, not a success, or you can have like a critical. Stuff like the messy critical, the bestial failure in here is because V5 dice stands for Vampire 5th edition dice. So this was intended to be used with Vampire the Masquerade, which has hunger, and that can introduce your bestial side to bullshit, messy critical stuff like that. All I really do in here is I make a class for a die that you can just roll, and then you can read the score from it. You can clear the die, and you can read the result on whether it was a success or not, something like that. And then I also have dice here for creating a dice pool of multiple dice that you then get to roll. It stores all of them just with these vectors, so really just in an array. And then we're able to access those all together, or we can access them as just kind of like a sum. To show the implementation of this a little bit, pragma balls, keep doing it. Yeah, we use this srand function to, this one here just kind of seeds the RNG value here with whatever time we start the program at, which means every time we're going to run this program, we're going to be getting different results from it. Unless we were to, in theory, start and run this program multiple times within the same whole second, which I'm not going to do, so we don't have to worry about that. The way that I implement rolling the die here is I use this built-in rand function, which gives me an integer back from 0 up to rand max, which is this value here of 0x7FFF hexadecimal, so that's 32,767. And I will take this value. I typecast it as a double that gives me integers here, so I don't want to truncate my data when I get it. If I were to just divide this by rand max, I would be getting any value from 0 up to 1, just any decimal value in there. However, by dividing it by rand max plus 1, the smallest integer increment I can get, I get the smallest decrease from 1 that I can possibly get. So this part here now returns me a value from 0 up to 0.9999, however many out it goes to check for this, really. It's essentially, it is 0 inclusive up to 1 exclusive. I then just multiply that by 10. This gets me from 0 inclusive to 10 exclusive, and then I add 1 to that. That gets us from 1 inclusive up to 10.99999 going down, so that gets us up to 11 exclusive. I then just typecast that back as an integer and store that as our score, and this truncates it down. So 1 up to 1.9999999, closest it can be to 2 without being 2. All of that gets floored down to 1, and then same thing from 2 all the way up to 2.9999999 gets truncated down to 2, and going all the way up until we get to 10 up to 10.9999999 whatever gets truncated down to 10. So we end up with an even distribution of numbers from 1 to 10. That's how I roll every individual die. To get the result for each die, I then also take the result here, and I score, 1 would be a botch, 2, 3, 4, 5 is a failure, and in my case, really here, botches are just going to be counted as failures, so 1 to 5 all fail, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all going to be some success, with 10 specifically being counted as a potential critical here. What do I have here? That's an old way that I had that implemented. We don't need to look at that. Cool. Just a slight addendum that I have for the random function that I'm using for rolling each of the dice and generating the number from 1 to 10 here. This is just a different way to do it that is a little bit more efficient than I came up with later, just because I was so frustrated with how long some of the simulations were taking to run, and it resulted in a slight improvement over things. So this is initially what I was thinking of doing before I decided to go with the whole double route, because that was just so much easier and more clear and much better to explain as well, I think. So this makes a nice addendum for that. But when we roll our rand function, we end up with a value anywhere from 0 up to our rand max here, 32,767 here. And you might think, well, why don't you just do modulo 10 of that, and you'll end up getting a value from 0 to 9, and then you can just use 0 as if it was a 10, same thing like you're actually rolling a d10 here, and then use the rest of the face numbers as the actual result there. The issue with doing that had me a little peeved is the fact that there is not a clean, even distribution of this here. You can see that 8 and 9 are criminally underrepresented, 1 each. Now, 0.001%, 0.002%, maybe that doesn't matter a lot to some people, but I have brain problems, so to me this was just unacceptable. And you can see the reason for that is going to be down here, because we've got this pattern going of every multiple of 10 hits 0, and then it goes up, incrementing each time, up to 9, until we hit another multiple of 10, and then we get 0, and this is hunky-dory, but we don't stop on a multiple of 0. Instead, we stop on this 7 here, so we get 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all fine, but we don't have 8, and we don't have 9. So that's what's causing the problem here. So if we were to just ignore these last few values here in some way and effectively chained what rand max functionally is for us to 32,759, or instead of hexadecimal 7FFF, it's hexadec 7FF7 here. Now we see that we are indeed ending on another clean multiple. If we added one more to here, we would be getting an extra 0 in there. And going back up to our numbers, this gives us the exact perfect distribution. There's 3,276 possible outcomes in here for every one of our whole numbers here, which is exactly what we want. So if we were to go look at the improved roll die, I have the old one down here just as old now. I hope somebody is still receiving extreme pain in my naming conventions that just don't exist. But I essentially am determining like a new max that we're going to be worrying about here instead of just rand max. And I also am making sure that we only loop through this a few number of times as a precaution, because what I do is I take int and we just store a temp value here, which is the random's output. And this is going to be our value anywhere from 0 to rand max, because we want to make sure that it's not going to increase over 32,759. We simply just do a check for that if it is less than that, we'll just break out of this whole looping nonsense and go on. And then this is very straightforward here. We just do modulo of 10, and this gets us a value from 0 to 9. And then this logic down here, the switch case statement, is exactly the same as before, except we've changed out the 10 for a 0 here. And this actually whole thing ended up, when I was running the trial 6s with 100,000 weak models versus a gorilla, previously it was taking about 33 seconds, and when I've included it this way, since this is a good function to optimize, since roll die is going to be rolled millions of times, any slight changes we can get in here, any slight performance is going to be great. And this was able to reduce it from 33 down to 30 seconds, so about a 9% improvement, which is real nice, because we're not doing we don't have like this typecasting and this floating point like arithmetic and division and multiplication stuff. We're doing much simpler, easier checks here. But instead of doing just a do while loop or a while loop for this, I instead set it to be a for loop with a value that I can change. 3 just seems good enough. The reason for this was because I'm just making the assumption that this rand function is going to actually give me good like outputs. If for some reason something in the system were to go wrong, something with this rand function were to freak out, maybe it only started giving me like the max value that it can. In that case, if I did have a while loop, this would just get stuck indefinitely forever. So the odds of you getting that value all the way down here, the values over here of 32,760 up to 32,767 multiple times in a row are exceedingly low. So I think it's fair to say that we don't need to loop too many times here to really be cautious of this. Originally I had 10. I changed it to 3. I've seen no difference whatsoever, which makes me believe that it's probably not even hitting the first loop the vast majority of the time, which is exactly what we would expect here. But yeah, this is just a little update. Yeah, and then when we go to roll dice, we just take the number of dice you want to roll here, clear whatever dice pool we have, and if you are trying to roll less than or equal to 0 dice, you cheeky fuck, then I just just return immediately. Otherwise, I will just roll through and roll each of these dice individually and then add them into our array element by element here. I do a check for criticals here to check in case we have a pair of 10s here. I will take the critical half bool that I create, and then I will loop through all of our results here, and I will check if it's a success or a critical. I will just increment the number of successes we have, which would have been set back to 0 back here. And then if it is a critical, I will check to see, is this crit half bool set to true? If the flag is not true, then we will jump down here and we'll just set it to true and then keep going on. So we don't change the number of successes. If we were to say get a 10, then we would go through here, we find that it's equal to crit, increment number of successes, and then we set crit half to true. And then if the next result was also a 10, we would, sit through here, we would increment our number of successes, we're up to 2 now. We've counted each of the lone 10s once here, because we have post-incremented once each time. And then we check if it's crit, that's true, and then we also check for the crit half. If this is true, we want to double the 2 10s that we've had before, in terms of how many successes they're worth, which means we're functionally adding an additional 2 successes on top of this because we've already added the previous 2. Then the crit status of the entire roll is set to true, just in case we care about whether the roll had any criticals in it. And then we set this crit half back to false so that the next 10 doesn't trigger the same logic again here. Also realize I'm doing this like with bitwise operation here. The reason for that is because I was feeling fancy in doing this. And I had the enumerations for the different results and stuff set to like 0, 1, 2, 4, 8 so that they can be their own binary flags, like their own actual like bit flags here. So I could just do like bit masking operations to determine what is what. This might be showing that most of my experience when it comes to programming comes with like embedded system stuff. You know, you're like starting with your Arduinos and stuff like that and then making your own designs. But you don't really have to do that. I could have easily just left these completely just unchanged of setting specific values and then have just done a check here like is equals to success. It would be doing the exact same thing here. The logic for this doesn't actually matter. And that's everything we really need to worry about with this. And then for the character, pragma balls every time. For the character here, we got a little bit more going on here. We've got our health trackers, which the way that we're tracking this is we have a maximum value, and then I independently track the amount of superficial and aggravated damage that we can take. I have a flag set in here, which is the flag for checking if the character's dead. Then I realized afterwards it would probably make sense to just have like a single struct that I check that contains all of the flags. This would be a good place to actually use the bitwise arithmetic and using bit masking here, so I could in theory store like up to 8 flags in a single byte instead of having fucking one bool for every one of them. Absolute monster that I am wasting this data, but who really cares? Not me, not right now. But I have all these different flags in here. The two that are actually going to matter for us are going to be if they're impaired, which is the -2 die to the impacted tracker, as well as, which in this case is only going to be health, as well as is the character dead. In this case, we can just create the character, give him a name, give him everything special. There's a role for dealing damage to the function, for dealing damage to the character, as well as clearing damage from their tracker. And then you can do all your get stuff here. I got real lazy at some point and didn't even like finish them out here. It was just a lot easier to just have access directly to the tracker here. By the way, I hope anyone looking over this can really appreciate the intermixing of like snake case and Pascal case and camel case and everything that I've got going on here. You're welcome. It's called I don't have any actual work ethic, and I rarely end up doing program anyone else ever has to see. So someone else, I'm sure, is suffering silently through all of this. That sounds like a them problem, though, if you ask me. You know what I say? I say pragma balls. Anyway, that's creating the character. This is still creating the character. This is our destructor. This dealing damage function. This is going to be an interesting one here. Superficial damage, gets added from left, and aggravated damage gets added from the right. If at any point we fill up all the way, your character gets impaired. And then if they receive additional damage on top of that, it gets converted into aggravated. Important to point out, if you receive superficial damage while your health tracker is all the way filled up with damage, then your tracker just converts that into aggravated damage. And then whenever aggravated damage and superficial damage meet, aggravated damage simply overwrites it. So like if I had a health tracker with like 5 things on it and I had like 2 points of superficial damage, 2 points of aggravated damage, if I take 2 points of aggravated damage, I will fill up that middle box and become impaired, and then I will simply overwrite one of the superficial damage, resulting in a net of 1 superficial damage, 4 aggravated damage. That's just how that works, plain and simple. So I start here. If the damage type is none, or if you're not dealing any actual positive damage, don't waste my fucking time and get the hell out of here. Then I count up the number of empty slots here, which is how many slots from the max tracker don't have any damage on that. So it's just the max minus the sum of the damage that they have here. I start off by handling the superficial damage here. And if the damage is less than the empty number of slots, it's very easy. I just add that as superficial damage, the amount of damage that we've taken here, as superficial damage. I make the assumption any halving for superficial happens before this function call as well. I actually have a function specifically out here for halving superficial damage. So don't have to worry about that. And in this case here, if the damage is equal to the number of empty slots, like let's say I was a weak mortal with 4 health and I got in a fight with a gorilla and it dealt, it would deal aggravated damage to me, but if it dealt for some reason 4 superficial damage to me, I would just fill up all 4. Yeah, damage is less than or equal to the number of empty slots. I would fill up all 4 with superficial damage, and then I would check and say, yes, the damage I took is equal to the number of empty slots I had, so that means that there are no more empty slots now. So I set my status flag as impaired set to true, and then we simply return and skip out of this. If, however, the damage was not less than or equal to the number of empty slots, we will skip down here, where we will add a number of superficial damage equal to the number of empty slots, effectively filling up all of the empty slots we have with superficial damage, and then I decrease our total damage amount by that number. I set it equal to 0, and this effectively now, I can convert the damage. In effect, I don't need to do a check here at all because I'm checking if the damage is none or if the damage is superficial here, and because it's an enumeration that can only be none, superficial, aggravated, there'd be fucking problems if it wasn't anything else. So I don't actually need to do any check here, and because I'm going to be doing this as many times as I can, I was trying to optimize this a little bit later. That's where these types of comment stuff comes from here, and why I don't do a check for aggravated. But if at this point, I essentially say, like, if I had 1 empty tracker, but I'm taking 3 superficial damage, I add 1 superficial damage, and now I set it up and pretend as if, oh, actually, I've just taken 2 aggravated damage. And then how aggravated damage works is if it's greater than the number of empty slots, we will be decreasing it by, we will be decreasing it in a way such that the aggravated overwrites the superficial when they get met here, by decreasing the superficial damage by the difference between our incoming aggravated damage and the number of empty slots we have. And then if damage is equal to empty slots, again, we'll be doing a check to see if the character needs to be impaired or not. And then I will add to the aggravated damage the remainder of this damage here. And if this damage ever is greater than or equal to the maximum health that they have, the superficial damage could potentially have gone negative here because, if they had like 1 superficial and 4 aggravated, or I guess 3 aggravated for a weak mortal Jeremy here, and he took like 3 aggravated damage on top of that, it would have put him technically down to -2 superficial because it just sets it to the difference between the empty slots and the incoming aggravated damage. So in this case, we make sure to set it back to 0 so we don't get any funky side effects when we're checking health later. And then I just set the flags, and because I had both, I just set them both to true. I really only need to use one of them. And I'm lazy. I don't care. And I set these to true, and that's an indication that the character's dead. And then for clearing the tracker, I just remove all of the damage here and then remove any of the negative flags. So that's just about everything that you need to see. Only other thing that the characters can do is they can roll their attack pools and they can roll their defense pools, where you can see here we will be rolling it's a minimum number of dice that you can roll is 1 here, so you would be rolling just the attack pool. You see roll dice, the attack pool plus whatever mod is coming in. And this check here is just done to be if like your dice pool was say 1 and your modifier from being impaired was say -2, then your character, just to make sure that you don't roll -1 dice and have nothing happen, we just do a check here to make sure if this ends up being negative, then we set the modifier in such a way that it will set the value here equal to 1. And that way you will at minimum be rolling 1 die whenever you attack or defend. Okay, that is everything about how these kind of behind the scene libraries work. So now we can go into our actual trials ourselves. Okay, trial number 1 here is going to be, I guess I'll show off the trials before I actually do a roll of them, just in case anyone's really interested in them, because I'm not going to go into thorough detail on how the trials work. I'm just going to look at the results for them. In this case here, though, we can see that for the rolling the pool of a specific size is the purpose of trial 1, so that we can kind of get our like our sea legs on here to see what kind of rolls can we actually expect here. So when we're rolling 100,000 simulations, where each roll we are rolling 7 dice here. We're rolling 7 dice 100,000 times, finding the minimum, maximum, calculating the theoretical maximum like we did before, and then finding the mean number of dice that are getting rolled from this. And as was mentioned before, back in the mechanics section of the presentation, you can expect the number of dice to roll to be about half, but pushed up a little bit from the criticals that you can get. You can see here, rolling 7 dice, you would expect, have a simple expected value of 3.5 successes. The actual value looks to be closer to 3.8 successes here. And the reason for that is because of these critical successes. In fact, the breakpoint, I believe, was about 9 dice, I think, for where the average is really better thought of. If you were to roll 1 die, the minimum number of dice you can roll, it's not possible to get a critical, so it will not come into play. So the expected value truly will be, you can see here, mean value of 0.5. So like 0.500 or like 4.98, something like that. Like 4.9993 over here. Or like 0.49993, you know what I mean? So in this case, with rolling 1 die, the actual number of successes is going to be exactly, expected successes will be 0.5. As soon as you introduce 2 dice, however, this number is going to begin to deviate away from the expected value. You can see here, yeah, it's now like 1.02-ish, about that range there, even though, you know, if you're half, like a coin flip for both of them, you might expect that to be getting 1 for rolling that. But no, in this case, it ends up being higher because of the number of successes here. We showed 7 before with about like 3.8. And yeah, it looks like I already put here, 8 to 9 crosses the 50% to 60% rounding. And what I mean by that is, if you were to picture in your mind that you rolled an arbitrary number of dice, like a huge die pool, yeah, you can see for 8 successes, we're getting about 4.38 instead of just 4 here. And also, interestingly to point out, even though the theoretical max is 16 here, we're not actually even getting like close to that. I think with 7, we were also like failing a bunch of these rolls here. Despite rolling 100,000 times, we did not once in this instance, in any of these instances, actually get 16 successes. So the theoretical max is usually just theoretical. It's not actually going to be like a realistic thing to make use of. I think if I dump this down to like 10,000, I might be able to do like 100 dice here. Well, let's do 1,000. Let's see how long this lasts. If this lasts for more than a couple seconds, then I'm just gonna start crying. Hey, there we go. Cool. Yeah, perfect. What we can see here is when you roll an arbitrarily large number of dice, the expected number of successes asymptotically approaches 60% of your dice pool instead of, you know, the expected value of 0.5 of your dice pool here. The reason for that is because when you have an arbitrarily large number of dice being rolled, you can effectively say, well, every single 10 more or less is going to be able to find another 10 to pair up with. So when you roll, say, 10,000 dice, you expect 1,000 of those to be 1s, 1,000 to be 2s, 1,000 to be 3s, all the way up till 1,000 of them to be 10s. So 1,000 for every single one of them, because it's an equal distribution. The 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s count for nada, zilch, 0. The 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s all count for 1 success each, so that would be a net sum of 4,000 successes. But the 1,010s, functionally, all of them are a critical pair. There might be one lone 10 if you roll an odd number there at the very end, but that's going to be basically nothing compared to the entire number here. So you're going to end up getting double the successes for all 1,000 of those. So those 1,010s are functionally worth 2,000 successes. So as a result, you end up with the ideal number there being 60% of the dice pool here. So 6,000 successes out of 10,000 rolls here. Yeah, you see we're rolling 1,000 here, and we're getting about 600 on every single thing here. So yeah, this is exactly how we would expect it to work. And we also show over here that, yeah, the split point between when it is closer to round your number to 50% versus when it is closer to round it up to 60% is the threshold between 8 to 9 here. Because if you were to take 8 here, you're getting about a little bit under 4.4 here. And that would be, actually, why did I close out? I need to have these numbers here. So yeah, if we're getting 8, like let's say we're rolling 8 dice here, we're expecting to be getting 4 here. We're actually getting 4.4 here. And if we were to take 0.6 times 8 dice, that would be getting us 4.8. So this minus our 4 here gives us 0.8. And you can see we're actually getting about 4.37, 4.38, where the halfway point between this would be 0.4. So this 0.4 on top of our 4 would mean the exact halfway point between 50% expected successes and 60% expected successes would be 4.4. We don't get that. We're just shy of that. But if we boost it up to 9 successes, and then we build this out here, just a little bit of fun, quick maths going on here. Now, in this case, the expected number of successes is indeed... What am I thinking? My brain is tired right now. Our expected number of successes, baseline 50% for each individual die, will be 4.5 for this pool. However, 60% of our... Stop. Leave me alone. 60% of our die pool here will be 5.4 successes. Minus 4.5 here shows 0.9. So 0.9 on top of our halfway point of 4.5 here. 5.4 is what we're going for. I am tired if you can't tell. That right there is to show that the break-even point between the 50% expected successes, 60% expected successes is exactly at 9, which really all this goes to show is that if you're rolling really big fucking dice pools, again, really is true for World of Darkness in every way. The rich get richer. If you're rolling more dice, like say you're a gorilla rolling 7 fucking dice, you're going to expect to get even more successes than you normally would over someone who's rolling a small number of dice. And the percentage change that's going to be over the expected value is going to be larger for you as well. It just kind of kicks ass to be good at things. So trial number 2 is going to be our stats for repeat and conflict rolls. This is going to kind of show how margin and damage works, and this is going to be the first time we actually pit Jeremy versus Son of Harambe here. So in the case of 100,000 trials, we have the total mean margin as well as the margin over Jeremy and damage to Jeremy. So this is how well Son of Harambe is doing over here, and this is how well, or really how not well, Jeremy is doing over here, and this is our total mean margin. And what that means here is that if we take all 10,000 of these rolls and we look at what the margin is here, it's going to be divvied up between either, like Jeremy, Harambe getting the margin over Jeremy, or Jeremy getting the margin over Harambe, which really rarely ever happens. But if you add these two numbers together, you pretty much just get our total mean margin up here. And then this is the damage that will be dealt by Son of Harambe, and this is the damage that will be dealt by Jeremy. And it's kind of interesting to point out, you would expect, well, aggravated damage is just going to be doing the margin damage. And for Jeremy over here, it's going to be superficial, so you would expect the damage to be half the margin over here. But that's not what we see. We actually see that the damage is slightly higher for Harambe and significantly higher for Jeremy over here. 0.034 over 0.004. Instead of doing 0.002 damage, we're doing several times, like an order of magnitude larger than that. What's going on here? That's our good friend, the conflict rolls and their ties, increasing the amount of damage that you would deal arbitrarily. Realistically, you can see here Jeremy is rarely ever going to be doing better than Son of Harambe, but sometimes Son of Harambe does so bad it does as badly as Jeremy does, and in that case, they both deal damage to each other. So even though Jeremy is hit on average, he's getting fuck all for his margin, whenever they do happen to tie there, it's going to create a very disproportionate impact of damage on him. I believe if I change some of these here, not Jacked Mortal, Weak Mortal Combat, didn't use his actual name there. If we compare multiple people that deal superficial damage to one another, we can start coming up with more reasonable numbers. Like you can see here, Jacked Jeremy is winning 1.63, and he is indeed dealing less damage on average than his margin because of superficial. However, you would expect 0.8 in this case, but it's not that low because of the highs that he is periodically getting with Jacked Jeremy, or the few times that he does just lose to Jeremy here. In the case that he does lose to Jeremy, he deals fucking nothing, which really starts tanking his number pretty bad. And in this case over here, he's doing like 6 times more damage than you would expect from this value, even if it wasn't being halved. It really pushes up to like 12 times damage, because anytime he does get these ties, it still counts as him dealing damage here, which is making the disconnect between margin and damage in these extreme cases comes from the conflict ruling of ties being treated as effectively a partial win on both sides. If we were to make the superficial damage difference even more extreme by, say, throwing an insanely powerful mortal into the mix here. You can see now, yeah, 5.6 damage, and we're dealing like 3 point something. We're dealing much less here. It's, as this dice pool kind of gets larger, you can see like we can't even, with the precision we have, we can't even see how many successes Jeremy, or maybe he's actually just fucking got 0 successes over him. In either case here, you can see that the damage here is significantly more approaching. And even if he's getting fuck all wins over him, sometimes he does still deal some amount of damage because of the periodic ties. And they happen less and less and less, which is why the numbers get lower and lower here. Anyway, that's all fascinating, I'm sure, for how that mechanically works. But now you kind of get the idea for how a margin is determined there. Now I'm going to show turn-by-turn kind of bout of combat. Just what could we expect with a weak mortal Jeremy versus our gorilla here? So we can see, yeah, combat begins turn 1, Jeremy versus Son of Harambe. Jeremy starting the fight with a monolithic 0 successes. Son of Harambe getting 4. In this case, Harambe deals 4 damage to Jeremy, and it's a full 4 damage because his damage is not being halved since it's not superficial. And we're going to see much of the same thing. Ooh, we get to see one of these examples early. Cool. In this, oh my god, we get both examples early. I don't have to like smash space like I thought I was going to have to. This is a case where Jeremy, he gets 1 success, 50-50, coin flip for him. Son of Harambe did really badly with 7 dice, managed to get 1 success. So this ended up being a draw, and both characters deal 1 damage to each other. And the only very rare case, I'm so happy that happened here so I don't have to mash space like a madman, of Jeremy getting 1 success and Harambe getting no successes at all. He failed 7 coin flips in a row. Fucking fraud alert here. Jeremy wins, takes no damage, and deals 1 damage, superficial, to Son of Harambe. Again, superficial damage, even if you do 1, halved down to 0.5, rounds up to 1 damage. So having it when it's at 1 doesn't actually do anything. And if we were to just mash space a whole lot more times, yeah, you see most of the time, Harambe is coming out on top of this. Son of Harambe is a powerhouse in this matter. He's not a foe to be taken lightly, so it's really not looking good for Jeremy. He got very lucky at the start there, managing to deal 1 damage without taking any and getting a tie, but I can mash that button like 50 times and we'll see barely anything coming out of Jeremy at all. We saw the numbers from before. However, I did mention before the way that defenses work, where if you are making defensive rolls, the gorilla is not going to be able to attack every single mortal all at the same time. Gonna have to attack something and then also defend in the same turn. So I'm just gonna give a spoiler alert for this. We could maybe check it later. The damage that you would deal from trying to split up all of your damage among several different targets is going to be a really, really bad strategy in the long run. It's going to be much better for you to try focusing your damage onto a single target and then just defending from the rest. Because think of it, if you have 7 dice, why would I roll like 3 against one target, 4 against another, and then 7 to defend from one, and then 5 dice to defend? Like, math-wise, it just ends up being better, and you're less likely to take damage over a long string of tests, which is what we're doing exactly here. So this is the optimal strategy for Harambe. He's going to be trying to defend from as many Jeremies as he can. So we have a test here. Let's see if we throw 100 Jeremies at him. How long is Harambe actually going to last here? Son of Harambe is going to... He's gonna die at some point. That's not too surprising. And if we show it off again, yeah, it's gonna keep happening. He's not gonna be able to survive past 100 Jeremies. He's not even getting close right now. And this is a very unrealistic situation right now, because in this simulation here, I am simply showing the penalty caused by making the same defense roll over and over in combat here. So this is theoretically, if 100 Jeremies could attack him all at once, what would happen? This is a completely unrealistic scenario, which is not going to happen later. This is just a demonstration purpose to show the penalty that happens here. And we can see this is the gorilla's health tracker here, and I'm also bringing out the individual values of the superficial damage, the aggravated damage, and its max health. In this case, the circles, the empty circles, just represent an empty damage tracker slot. The slash represents a superficial damage, and then the X's represent aggravated damage here. So we can see against the first Jeremy, roll 7 dice like a champ. It's almost impossible for Jeremy to realistically hurt him at all here. Same thing here. Same thing here. Same thing here, but he is getting weaker, you see. And once we get like beyond this point here, it actually starts becoming really plausible for Jeremy to get a hit in here or there against the gorilla, because the gorilla only needs to fail like 2 or 3 coin flips opposed to failing 6 or 7. And we can see at this case here, once he has been attacked by the 7th Jeremy, the additive penalties on his dice pool have gotten so bad that it is hit its minimum, and from here he is only rolling 1 die. You might think, just intuitively, this is going to be, okay, now it's just a coin flip as to, whether he deals damage, or whether Jeremy deals damage to the gorilla or not. It's just going to be like 50-50 odds, however long it takes damage here, so we can just take however much health he has, and then just kind of like try to calculate how much damage he could take by like taking a double number, whatever. Not really so simple as that, though, because keep in mind, on a tie like this, the Jeremy is actually going to win here. The only instance where Son of Harambe actually does not take damage when defending in a conflict is if he beats his opponent's die pool. So if he rolls a 1 and Jeremy rolls a 1, that is a tie. Jeremy deals damage to him. If Son of Harambe rolls a 1 and Jeremy rolls a 0, Gorilla beats him, so Gorilla takes no damage. If Son of Harambe rolls a 0, if Jeremy rolls a 1, Jeremy just wins with a margin of 1, deals 1 damage like normal. If both of them roll 0s, this is still a tie. And in the case of a tie, Jeremy is still able to deal 1 point of damage, which means of the 4 possibilities here, only one of them, where Harambe rolls 1 and Jeremy rolls 0, the gorilla not take any damage, which means it's actually really bad to hit this point, because now it is instead of, you might think like the 50-50 coin flip, it's a 75-25 flip, very likely to deal damage to the gorilla. And you can see the damage here starts pooling up comedically fast. At some point in here, it fills all the way up. Son of Harambe is impaired. That's -2 dice. That's nothing on top of the -15 he's already suffering at this point. Aggravated damage begins to build up from this point as all of the incoming superficial damage light slaps convert into aggravated. And then at some point, bam, Jeremy number 24 landed the killing blow here. And if we go all the way down here, let's roll it again. 26, 24, 23, 22, 19, 24, 26, 21, 24, 25, 22. Around this range, between like 20 to 30 Jeremys to take him out in this capacity, which is nice and all. But again, this is an unrealistic trial because we are not actually going to allow 30 Jeremys to gang up on him at one time. We're only going to allow a tenth of that, 3 of them to gang up at one time. So without any further ado, let's actually put some lives on the line here and see how well is this gorilla going to hold up against 3 Jeremys attacking at one time. Defending Champion's Corner, we have Son of Harambe. In the Challenger's Corner is a mass of the same opponent, Jeremy. A little bit of spoiler here. I didn't actually bother programming in 100 mortals. I was actually just seeing how many mortals it took for the gorilla's death, and then if that number is, 100 or greater, we can say that the gorilla has successfully withstood an onslaught of 100 Jeremys here. So this is just going to be fighting until the last death, being ganged up on by 3 Jeremys at a time. And again, the strategy here is Son of Harambe punches against 1 Jeremy, punching at him in the front, and then there's Jeremy kind of his back left and his back right that are each taking swings at him as well. He is actively defending from each of those with a -1 die penalty for the first, -2 die penalty for the second. So it's 7 dice, 6 dice, and 5 dice pools against 1, 1, and 1. Not even a collective 3, because then they could maybe crit and get something out of that. No, this is just going to be bad. This is going to be fucking rough. Look at that. He's dead after number 37, and he took 18 Jeremys down with him. That's a decent number of Jeremys to take down here, but how could this happen here? We see what's going on here, though. At this point in this region here, before Harambe is superficially impaired, that penalty from the impairment really comes a knock in here, because that 7 dice pool gets reduced down to a 5, and then also being reduced down by -2 from the second Jeremy attacking. We mentioned before that rolling 3 dice is good odds for Son of Harambe, but by no means is that like invincible. And in this case, I'm just a spoiler, this part of the testing, the trials here, has some wild variance to it because of how long this first part lasts. There's a very slow, very shallow slope buildup of superficial damage every time one of these Jeremys just barely gets lucky. You can see that the death toll is rising up dramatically. Like, by the time Son of Harambe is about halfway-ish to physical impairment, which is only a quarter way to death, he's already taken double-digit Jeremys down with him. But at some point here, he gets physically impaired, and he's now suffering some severe dice penalties here, and fucking Harambe Fraud just collapses after that. Comedically quick how quickly he goes down after this. And he is fucking dead after only killing 18 Jeremys here. And if we run this test again, he survived 36 while killing 21 Jeremys. He survived until turn 41 while killing 23 Jeremys. You can see some of these cases here, like right here, for example, is a long stretch where he does not take any damage at all. He's just a total champ. But once he pushes a little bit and gets physically impaired, he's just fucking gone immediately. He turned 47, killing 26 Jeremys. Turned 49, killing 27 Jeremys. He's doing pretty good here. Some of these are going to be wild. Like this one is like 10 fewer turns, but still killed roughly the same number of Jeremys. Yeah, the numbers can be pretty whack for these ones here. Which is to say that when we run the final test here, we do that same last trial 100,000 times here, throw them all into the meat grinder, see what happens. What do we get on the other side? We got Son of Harambe fighting until his last death here. He's being ganged up on by 3 different Jeremys at a time. These Jeremys are fucking out for blood. None of them are going to back down. None of them have any strategy either. None of them could even like come up with a good strategy on how the fuck. I couldn't come up with a strategy. How are you going to approach a gorilla to fight it? This is a terrifying concept. Especially like you'd have to have the other Jeremys kind of outside the ring on this after they've all broken into the zoo. Like you got your 99 other friends to come in with you, overpower the staff there, and finally make your way into the enclosure. You have to have at least like a dozen Jeremys on dead Jeremy duty. As soon as one of them gets squashed, the others just grab him and pull him out there as fast as they can. So another Jeremy can step into his place here. The gorilla is just turning and smash, smash, smash. Just Jeremy after Jeremy. It's full of viscera in this place. It is horrifying. By the time like Jeremy number 20 is getting up there, the gorilla is probably just painted a vibrant red. And we can see here, however, it still died. On average, our gorilla managed to last until round 52.1282 and killed an average number of Jeremys of 29.241 something. Yeah, the total. I was right. I should never second guess myself. The minimum turn count that this gorilla lasted was until turn 16, which kind of goes to highlight just how important it really is to have the 3 and out rule, because some of these fights, I don't know, I don't think I would like to sit around a table and play for multiple sessions all in the same single fight, just rolling the exact same punch, like duck and weave combo from this gorilla over and over for 142 turns. Turns in World of Darkness don't really, it's not like D&D where they say like, oh, it's like about 5 seconds for each turn. It's not like that. They kind of say like each turn takes however much time it needs, so it could be very like several seconds. Like one turn of each of these Jeremys all moving in and attacking could overall be a total of about maybe 30 seconds to hell, even a minute. So it's possible that this fight could be lasting for literal hours on end. But the minimum number of dead Jeremys in this first case here with 16 turns was 6. A measly 6 Jeremys to take them out, with the maximum number being 80. And I mentioned that there is really high variance here. This max dead number of Jeremys here is up to 89 in the second trial here, even though the average number of deaths is barely even changed. 29.2417 to 29.2134. Barely any difference there. And these simulations also take a decently long time to run. I have ran this for like a million simulations before, and the maximum dead number of Jeremys that I've ever been able to reach has been 96. 96! He was so fucking close. It was like 96, 97, something like that. He was down to the last ones where I was like worried, oh god, am I going to have to reprogram my thing to actually only have 100 Jeremys before like deciding, fuck it, I'm not going to bother with that. He's so fucking close with this, but he's just not able to do it. Weak mortal Jeremy's able to come in clutch the very last second and just fucking win. I don't even know if my code crashed here because it ain't loading. Oh well. Anyway, weak mortal Jeremy somehow surprisingly manages to come out on top of this just for funsies. What happens if we throw Mr. Jeremy in there, our adult man Jeremy, our grown-up here thrown into the ring? The simulations are thankfully going to speed up when it lasts a shorter period of time, because, you know, he's triple the die pool of weak mortal Jeremy here. Mr. Jeremy is quite more combat effective, which means each of the simulations lasts a significantly shorter amount of time. Yeah, we went from an average of 29 dead Jeremys down to 5, and a max dead Jeremy count of 97 down to 15. Yikes. Thankfully, the max turn count is only lasting a bit longer than 10 times the recommended length for combat. It's not the end of the world, but damn, 6 turns? Not a single dead Jeremy. That one in the front, that one Mr. Jeremy was taking it for the team for 6 turns. He managed to survive all of this. And I also want to point out that the way that I was rolling this, the time for this was the mutual attack between Son of Harambe and Jeremy, like whichever Jeremy it is there. The mutual attack would happen first, and then the defending from the other Jeremys on his sidelines would come in after that, which means he tanked 6 attacks from this gorilla here. And I think our thing is frozen again. I don't know why it's doing that. It's been doing that a little bit. I'm sure there's an actual reason. I'm pretty sure it's related to the buffer that I have for this, like, press space to wait for shit function. This, yeah, where was it? Yeah, press space to continue function that I copy pasted from somewhere else is probably failing in some way if I type other shit and press other buttons on the keyboard, but I don't really care enough about that to fix it here. Besides, who are you gonna fucking judge, huh? This is my program. I'm the one that made it, so. Oh, yeah. One thing I want to show off, also, for anybody who is interested in them, I am now going to sit through, now that I remember it, to show off the remainder of the trials that I have, in case someone really wants to pause and go through and see how does each of these things actually work. Do this number here, we'll go look at that. Yeah, pathetic. Against our Jeremy, who's jacked up on protein, working out at Planet Fitness here, he's killing on average less than 3. This gorilla's a complete chump. He only killed up to 9, up to 12. That's pathetic. I could kill 12 Jeremys. Give me a gun. You'll see that easy. No problem. Less than 3 on average weak mortals are jacked Jeremys dying here. There's also Gifted Mortal, which is an in-between between your average mortal and your deadly mortal, but there's no real reason to show it because, I mean, let's be real. We just want to see the deadly mortal. We just want to go all the way here. We've seen the bottom of the barrel. Now we want to see peak top human condition. Yikes. Oh my god. This combat is actually lasting potentially a short enough period of time that it might be like, you know, I might be willing to actually sit through it. Potentially this gorilla dies in 1 fucking turn. God damn, he's killing a maximum of 1 Jeremy every time, and on average he's killing less than 0.0 Jeremys. This man, this thing, this Jeremy the Ripper is horrifying. Deadly mortals are a goddamn nightmare. I would hate to be any kind of supernatural being going up against this. This is absolutely terrifying. Okay, one last addendum I want to do here. One last thing I really want to show. How might this type of combat actually go if we legitimately just had Jeremy the Ripper and Son of Harambe existing in the same place at the same time? What would actually happen here? How are things going to look up? And for this, there is a handy-dandy online V5 dice roller here that's made by TTRPGs on GitHub. This is an excellent dice roller. It handles hunger and it also makes use of willpower rolls that we're going to be making use of this time, actually. That previously we did not have to do anything for. And we also are going to be making use of the special rules in the back of the book for if you really want meaty hits. There we are, the crippling injuries table. So the way that this works here is when you are impaired and you take additional damage on top of that, you roll a 1d10 and add your current aggravated damage to this table here to find out what type of effect would be happening to you here. So would you be getting severe head trauma? Would you get a broken limb? Would you go blind? Would you just fucking drop dead instantly? The like. So we could maybe make this bout of combat a little bit more interesting. For our purposes, showing the numbers from before, I think it's fair to say that it wouldn't take more than 1 Jeremy the Ripper to take down a Son of Harambe, our gorilla. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to have our gorilla dice pools against our deadly mortal Jeremy the Ripper dice pools here. And we're going to see just how might this actually go down. So if Jeremy the Ripper, this absolute madman, this monster of a person, were to, probably in the dead of the night, since he's quite a bit smarter quite a bit more wits on him and strategy than the regular Jeremys that might have been coming at this poor zoo protecting its enclosures from these madmen trying to get in and get in fistfights with the animals. But they weren't prepared for Jeremy the Ripper to break in at night. He would have no problem getting his way into that enclosure there. The only question is, would he do this by force, or would he be trying to sneak his way up on the gorilla? And his goal here, his desire, is to make a trophy from this gorilla here. So I think it's fair to say that he's going to employ as much strategy as he can to make sure that the body and form of this gorilla doesn't receive too much undue damage, so that he can hang it up in his gym with all his fucking buddies. All of the jacked Jeremys can circle around it and chant about how cool he is. That's ultimately what we want here. He works at the Primate Combat Club. He probably founded it, let's be real. So in this case, it's fair to say that Jeremy is going to be making his stealthy approach into the gorilla enclosure, and it's late at night, so the gorilla's probably going to be not too alert. It's just going to be kind of hanging out there, probably trying to catch some sleep itself. Maybe feels a tinge of fear up its spine from some instinctual drive it's completely unaware of here, but it's still, it's not really, doesn't have any clue about what might be coming for it. And in this case here, this would be a roll of the deadly mortal Jeremy the Ripper attempting to sneak up on this gorilla, son of Harambe here. In that case, he is going to be making a roll of, he'll take his time with it. Let's say it's a roll of resolve and stealth. He has a specialty in ambushing gorillas, which applies here, giving him 9 dice. Meanwhile, this is going to be a contest roll here against the gorilla's awareness stat. Hey, get the fuck out of here. Against the gorilla's awareness stat. And that is going to be an exceptional dice pool for it, thankfully 4 dice instead of just the measly 1 here. So this 1 sets 2 successes for the gorilla, a lone 10 and then some regular success. That sets the difficulty that Jeremy is going to attempt to overcome. Needless to say, he does. He scores a critical success, and he is able to sneak up successfully on this gorilla. Now, another potential rule is going to be a ruling for called shots. Let me put them over here. A ruling for called shots. And the way called shots work are, you essentially decide that you want you want to not only make your attack, but you want to have some specific additional effect added on top of that as well, instead of just going for like your simple thing here. You want some kind of mechanical bonus to it. If there's no particular mechanical bonus, like if you said, for example, that you want to use strength and brawl to like hit someone, and you're like, I fucking want to like fly through there and kick him in the head while I do it, that's no different than just making an attack against them. So any storyteller worth their salt will say hell yeah and let that fly. But if you're specifically like, I want to kick them in the base of the neck to sever their spinal cord, knocking them unconscious like instantly, that would be an example of a called shot. The one that I'm specifically looking for is a rule that I'm going to be bending a little bit regarding decapitation. Hell yeah. So decapitation is, these rules here are intended for killing a vampire, where decapitation instantly destroys them, granting them the final death, the true death beyond what their normal state of unliving is. In this case, it is a -2 successes. This is what this -2 penalty here means. So -2 successes while using some means of decapitating them. And you cause 10 or more health in this specific case for this specific called shot, because, you know, this is trying to instantly kill something that otherwise barely takes damage. Like, filling a vampire full of lead will only do a bit of superficial damage to them. Vampires can be very difficult to put down. They're quite formidable opponents. So that's why the rules here are kind of really intense. In this case, I'm basically changing this a little bit so that by the use, he doesn't need a bladed weapon. Jeremy the Ripper can make use of his own bare hands. In this case, he's attempting to snap the gorilla's neck. He wants to make a quick, clean kill on this gorilla without any kind of huss or fuss, so that he can have a beautiful trophy to take home. Because he succeeded on his stealth roll here, the gorilla is not going to be able to make any kind of defensive maneuver. As such, this will be made purely at a difficulty of 1. And again, this will be at a -2 successes penalty here. So he rolls 6 successes. Jeremy wants this. There's nothing more that he wants. He will take 1 point of superficial willpower damage to reroll up to 3 dice here. Boom. That only grants him 1 more additional success, which is 5 total with the -2 penalty here. Unfortunately, he's not able to actually deal enough damage to put this gorilla down immediately. He's able to jump on it when it's least expecting it. The gorilla just gets up a little bit, just makes small grunting, unaware of what's even going on here, as its neck immediately begins to be wrenched with a sickening twist and a sickening crack as this gorilla begins to scream, flailing its arms, slamming him down on the ground, spinning Jeremy around through the air, and successfully tossing him off into the brush side, freaking the shit out of any other animals in this place here right now. And thankfully, there are no zookeepers around, or at least if they are, they're not able to get here in time for what Jeremy's going to do to this gorilla. He has dealt 5 damage. That is superficial. That gets halved to 2.5, round up to 3 damage. So in this case, let's just track him here. Dealt 3 superficial damage. You can't read that. Well, you'll have to trust me. That's 3 superficial damage. And also in this case for willpower, that's 1 superficial on Jeremy. I will be making use of willpower here in a more strategic way for any roll where if you have 3 blank dice or more, basically because you can re-roll up to 3 dice for any turn, for any roll you make. In this case, both of the characters will be making use of that. If either character becomes physically impaired, they will enter into a sort of like do or die fight or flight response, and they will be using willpower every single roll that they possibly can. This type of situation isn't going to require much forethought or thinking, so thankfully becoming mentally impaired is not going to be a big deal. This essentially means that there's a lot of willpower rerolls potentially available for Jeremy the Ripper here, and there's 4 total because of the 2 willpower down here, and that can fit 4 superficial. So the 4 potential rerolls for Son of Harambe here. However, this now becomes regular combat here. Jeremy is going to employ his specialty of fighting against gorillas to roll strength and brawl with a specialty. That's 5 + 5 + 1 is again 11. And our boy, Son of Harambe, has a physical die pool of 7 with a tremendous roar and slamming his fists down onto his chest, trying to scare Jeremy a little bit. It's not going to work against him. The gorilla is going to charge forward and attempt to sink its teeth into him, get its grip on him, slam him down into the ground, and toss him about all he can, rolling 7 dice. So let's make these rolls here. And in this case, both of them have 3 or more successes missing, so both of them will make a full willpower reroll. This will be another point of superficial damage. This is now 2 superficial damage on our boy Jeremy. And we want to make a willpower reroll here. Boom, boom, boom. Fucking sucks for you, Harambe. He takes 1 point of superficial willpower damage, but unfortunately got no successes to show for it here. So in this case, Jeremy wins. He has trained for this for so long. It's dark. He knows that the gorilla can't really see that well, that it's groggy, and it's mostly, at this point, it's underestimating him. It's relying on its size and intimidation to really freak out Jeremy here with its loud shouts that he has learned to drown out. If anything, he gains pleasure from hearing this creepy fuck he is. And he will continue on, dart to the side, and make every single blow he can against this gorilla's exposed abdomen as it is trying to freak Jeremy out and is not fully aware of the danger that it's in right now. So he wins with a margin of 7 successes, is that? Yeah, 7 successes. So he deals 7 points of damage. That's half to 3.5, round up. Deals 4 points of damage. Boom. He has dealt 8 damage to the gorilla. It is now impaired, physically impaired. This gorilla will be suffering -2 die penalty for every roll that it makes now, and it will also be, just because of the strategy I mentioned before, it will be employing willpower rerolls at all times, even if it's not fully optimal. The gorilla is now taken aback by everything that's happening here. It's probably thrown a fair few zookeepers around before. It's definitely fought with other animals before here, and it's kind of kicked the crap out of all of them. A bit of a king of the jungle situation going on. So it's never had to be in a situation where it is on such a back foot against such an unrelenting foe, as Jeremy makes no hesitation whatsoever and moves in for an additional attack here. He rolls 7 successes, and he will be making use of willpower reroll. Gets 9 total successes. He has taken 3 points. He's not even halfway to mental impairment, and he has suffered no physical damage. Harambe here will be making a roll here. 5 successes, not bad. He will be employing a reroll here. That gets him nice 7 successes. That's about the best he could hope for. He's got 2 superficial damage there, so he is now mentally impaired. Son of Harambe is he's terrified. He's in the worst spot he's ever been in his entire life. Honestly, this might be the worst spot he's ever going to be in with the way things are currently going. Because despite the massive successes, Son of Harambe goes full on the offense here and takes the fight to Jeremy, recognizing that it is bigger and stronger than whatever this thing that's broken into his enclosure is. So he needs to get this thing to hell out of here, show it who's the king here. Much to its surprise, Jeremy simply baits this around, makes it think that it's getting exactly what it wants, that he's moving towards the edge of the enclosure just so he can jump off the walls and slam directly into the gorilla's forehead, slamming it back, making it dizzy, and again landing several strikes against its abdomen here, trying to keep the jaw mostly intact here because he thinks that the roaring gorilla face is a thing of beauty and he wants to have that on his wall. So he again succeeds. In this case, he succeeds with a margin of 2. He deals 2 points of damage. Those 2 points of damage get halved into 1 because it's superficial. Forgot about that little detail. So he only deals 1 point of aggravated damage here. So he actually didn't really hit the gorilla that hard. He doesn't want to damage the face very much. It makes a lot of sense. However, the gorilla is physically impaired and has just suffered additional damage here. This means now it will be making a roll on the crippling injuries table, which is not going to be a really big deal for it because it only has 1 damage, so 2, 3. So it's stunned. So it either spends a point of willpower or loses a turn. Gorilla will gladly spend 1 point of superficial willpower. So the gorilla has 1 more willpower that it can potentially spend, and boy howdy is it going to fucking need it, because Jeremy is closing in again. He is making every advantage he possibly can as large as he can. He is now up to 4 points of superficial willpower damage. Oh boy howdy. Our gorilla here, he's physically impaired. He rolls 5. Ooh, you're praying for that critical. You did not get it. That is very unfortunate for you, you stupid fucking gorilla. This is not the time. This gorilla is completely taken aback now. It is falling on like its own ass here and is in a really desperate situation, trying to kick with its tiny little legs. That doesn't work. It's trying to throw its arms around in front of it, but can barely reach now. Jeremy grabbing onto the leg and dragging it out and kicking it near the groin area as well as around the abdomen, causing as much internal harm as he really can to this gorilla while keeping himself safe completely. He wins with a margin of 6. This is superficial, so that deals 3 damage to the tracker. In this case, now he's dealt 4 aggravated and he's 3. This gorilla is much closer in terms of aggravated damage. It is closer to death than it is to life. Also, fun fact, it's taken more damage while it is impaired. In this situation, again, that's for fun. At this point, this is a case where, by the way, 3 and out should apply. Realistically, Jeremy, he's won this fight. He hasn't suffered any damage yet, and he's got this gorilla almost dead. This is exactly the kind of reason that we would be able to just say, you know what? Jeremy wins this. Jeremy gets what he wants. He gets the hide of this gorilla. He gets the whole body. He gets it stuffed. Easy peasy. Anyway, our boy here has 4 points of aggravated damage, and he rolled an 8, so he gets 12. He's crippled. This is the same effect as broken, which is making rolls at -3 using the affected limb. In this case, I think it's fair to say it would be the legs. He does not want this gorilla to get away at all, and that's thematically fitting with how he had been approaching the fight previously. Same effect as a broken, but the limb is lost or mangled beyond use. Yikes. Our gorilla no longer has functioning legs. That sucks for him, because I would say that being able to move around in a fight is actually pretty fucking important. So this penalty absolutely does apply. So in this case, he is suffering his 7 dice pool, -2 for physical impairment, -3 for being goddamn crippled now. This gorilla is at its wit's end, and really it's at its body's end as well. The full limit of it as Jeremy moves in to make the final kill with one last roll here, aiming for that critical. Doesn't get it. Okay, well, let's see what 2 does. Wow, that's crazy. That fucking sucks for the gorilla. No successes at all. I should have been changing this to aggravated, because this is now actually 2 aggravated willpower damage, completely filled up on the gorilla's willpower tracker, be in like basically a comatose state if I had any say in this.
Thankfully, the gorilla's not going to have to actually suffer through such emotional turmoil, because with a margin of 7, Jeremy has dealt 3.5, round up to 4. He's dealt 4 damage. He has dealt, oh boy, 8. I think I was keeping track of this wrong here. I was keeping track of the aggravated damage though. So he's dealt exactly 8 aggravated damage here. That 8 aggravated damage is enough to, after having taken out the legs, at some point he can use his leverage to simply hold the arms at bay here, and he can tear away at the torso, the abdomen of this beast until it's no longer able to resist and fight back. With a sickening crunch, he rips through the skin, cracks through the ribcage, and is able to tear out this primate's heart so he can feast on it. And with that, he looks down over his prey here with a pretty much intact face, which is accomplishing the goal that he had here. He will certainly be able to make a trophy from this gorilla. It's only fair. When you accomplish your goal, your desire for a session, you can heal back 1 superficial willpower damage. So we'll go back, roll this back from 4 down to 3. He's not even halfway mentally impaired for this. This was a little bit of busy work here, but won't take very long before any of the zookeepers are able to get in here and figure out what the hell is going on. All they're going to find is visceral remains, a half-eaten heart, it looks like. What is that? And just a bloody trail leading back out to a broken door in the backside of the zoo, into the parking lot where it's clearly loaded in the back of some kind of vehicle and driven off, never to be seen again. And they are now missing their king primate, son of Harambe, from their zoo exhibit. The police are going to have a fucking field day with this tomorrow. This is an insane story, and the news are going to eat it up like crazy. That's just an example of the kind of thing that can happen when you play World of Darkness games. Personally, I think that Vampire Masquerade is a really fun game. Werewolf the Apocalypse, really fun. Hunter the Reckoning, really fun. There are other games that exist in World of Darkness. I can't really speak as well to them. I hope you've had as much fun with this as I have. I had a great time doing this. I love World of Darkness so much. I'm really glad I've gotten a chance to talk about it a lot. And I'm also glad that the little dice roller thing that I got was able to be put to use in some kind of little video and showing off to other people, because I've had so much fun with this project here. It's taken a long time because it's taken a lot longer than I thought this would take. Honestly, I thought, this is going to be like a 20-minute video. I can fucking look at OBS right now. This recording alone is 20 minutes. So no, it's not going to be a 20-minute video. I can try shrinking it down as much as I can. I know for a fact this is going to be a doozy of a video. But man, it's absolutely been worth it. And thank you very much to both Deck of DM Things for that initial video, for all the goofy people just posting about goofy scenarios online, and for Big Dweeb Delightful Kiss Boy for making awesome content, videos I really love watching, and I hope if anyone gets some fun out of this, that it's my close and personal friends, but then also potentially him. I have no idea if he's actually going to watch this, because I'm just going to update in his video and be like, oh, by the way, it takes up to 97 Jeremys, and then just not expand on that any further, and then just upload this on my channel and see what happens. Yeah, by the way, if you're looking for regular content like the speedrunning stuff I usually do, I like Fly Night a lot. I'm planning to run that a bit more, but I haven't had enough time for speedrunning recently because work has been really stressful, and I've been dedicating, as you can tell, a lot of time to TTRPGs instead of video games. So definitely not giving up on speedrunning. That's probably what I'm going to be doing next anyway, if I don't record more like song stuff just for fun. But take care, everyone. This has been an excellent time, and I will see you later. Oh, fucking, this is a video. I'm not, why am I